Hello, can everyone hear me? Hey, can everyone hear me? Great, glad everyone can hear me. So thanks again for everyone who subscribed. I'm glad I made up to 1,000 subscribers, and just want to have a live stream to say thank you. If anyone had any questions, feel free to shoot anything at me. It looks like we have quite a few people online. Trying to see how many people there are. 17. Yeah, that's quite surprising considering I didn't give too much notice. GC Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, I'm doing well. Actually went to Canobie for the last time all season this past weekend. The Canobie's done a really great job with all the COVID precautions. They've had employees stationed in the line to make sure people are wearing masks. The queue lines do move a little slow because of the reduced capacity, but I'm just glad the park opened. What's my coaster credit count? I'm at 1,012 different roller coasters. So maybe by the end of this video, my sub count will be higher than the number of credits I've been on. Badger State Coaster, my school has to go online on Thursday. Yeah, I feel like this is a rough year for going in-person learning just because of how places have to handle one outbreak. Coaster Insights, love your videos. Thank you. Coldplay, 325. How many songs have you heard from Coldplay? I know this isn't roller coaster related. I don't know too many Coldplay songs. I know Viva La Vida and I think Sky Full of Stars. And the only time I've seen them play is at like the Super Bowl a few years ago. CN 7470 production. Do you like Canobie Express? That I've ridden almost every ride in the park this year except Canobie Express. It's a fine train ride. It runs along the lake, but it doesn't really offer any views you can't get elsewhere in the park. Coaster Insights favorite song. It's hard for me to say which song is my favorite. I'd probably go with one of the ones I hear on like the Disney rides that I grew up enjoying, or maybe Fire on High by ELO, just because I loved hearing that in Astrosphere at Funtown. Worst coaster I've ever ridden. That's easy. Coaster Express at Parque Warner Madrid. That ride is rough. That ride's painful. I've never thought I'd hate the intimate T-bar restraints until I rode that ride. Every bump in the track, that metal bar of the T-bar will smack against your legs, and it's just brutal. Badger State Coaster's favorite kiddie credit. Probably one of my favorite ones is Bubbles the Coaster at Storybook Land in New Jersey. As well as Miler coasters with a really aggressive little layout. And, it's called Bubbles the Coaster, so they shoot bubbles at you when you go down the first drop. Favorite basketball team? The Celtics, and unfortunately their season ended last night. They just couldn't close in the fourth quarter, but at least they're a young team. Coaster Corsair. Why did I start my YouTube channel? Advice for small coaster YouTubers. Basically, during the lockdown, I wasn't able to go to parks, and I just wanted a way to express my love for amusement parks. And I had a huge stockpile of pictures over the years. I thought, let's try and make some videos with that. And then as the parks reopened, I started taking some more videos just so I can make better videos, so I'm not leveraging just pictures. I guess the biggest tip I can give you is when you go to a park, just look at the positives and focus on those when you make videos. Badger State Coaster's favorite baseball team, Boston Red Sox. So that was a rough one to watch this year. Their pitching staff was not good this year. Coaster Insights, most overrated coaster. Can't think of one. There are a few that I think are overrated. Like for me, I think El Toro is a little overrated. It's still an amazing ride with 4 great elements. I just can't consider it the best wood coaster because it isn't a complete ride, because the middle section's just okay and the finale's decent. What do you think is the most underrated coaster I've ever ridden? Probably Surf Coaster Leviathan at Sea Paradise. out just south of Tokyo. I heard nothing about that coaster before I rode it, and I went in expecting to be a jet coaster, which usually those are pretty tame, just like a mine train. But I had ridden Kawasami a few days earlier, and Surf Coaster Leviathan was better. That ride had a great setting on the water, some shockingly aggressive airtime, and the helixes had a good force to them. What realistic coaster Daddy, what realistic coaster do you think Canobie needs to add? Probably a family coaster to bridge the gap between Dragon and Yankee Cannonball. Yankee Cannonball is currently their family coaster, and that has a 48-inch height requirement. So just any family coaster would be good for that park. Coldplay 325. What's the most boring roller coaster you've ridden? Most boring coaster I've ridden. Trying to think of a few, because usually the bad ones that come to mind are things that are brutally rough. One of the most boring ones I can come up with is the one that comes to mind is Jaguar and Osprey Farm. I mean, it gives decent visuals, but it just doesn't do too much with the layout. Hoosier Hurricane's another one that comes to mind, but that ride at least moves fast and scenic, but it just doesn't have the airtime you'd expect with a ride with that many hills. Next coaster for Six Flags Mexico. That park does pretty well from an attendance perspective, and they don't have a launch coaster, so I think that might be the next part that gets one of those SNS Air launch coasters, and it would really round out their lineup well and give them a third great coaster. Can you explain the stuffed animals? Big Disney fan, and some people have paintings on the walls, but I'm at an apartment and I can't really hang anything on the walls, so might as well get some company with a bunch of plushies on the sofa. Next coaster for Six Flags Over Georgia. I know everyone's been expecting them to get a free spin at some point, and I feel like that'll be one of the coasters they add at some point coming up. I know they're not the biggest love among enthusiasts, but they're really marketable additions, and I do enjoy them because they're different than everything else at that park. Least favorite aero coaster. Probably one of the old corkscrew coasters that have the really cramped trains. Like the one that comes to mind is like the Michigan's Adventure one has the smaller trains, whereas the one at Canobie, I have a little more legroom. Coaster Insights Best Water Park. My favorite is Atlantis Aquaventure out in Dubai. That park has some great water slides. It has, I think, 4 or 5 Master Blaster slides. It has some really thrilling speed slides, and it's a beautiful park. It has the temples just like the one in the Bahamas, and it's just very lush and well landscaped. Next coaster for Six Flags St. Louis. That's the perfect park to get a Raptor with their attendance, and it would really round out their lineup. I have a bad feeling they're going to get a free spin instead, but I'll hold a hope they get that Raptor that they need so they can finally get a nice aggressive steel coaster. Coldplay 325. Do you agree with the hate that Six Flags America gets? I feel it gets a bit much. I think it's just popularly hated in that park. I don't hate Six Flags America. It has a really nice collection of roller coasters. It's nice that you can go there and know you never have to deal with any lines. The downside of that park is it just doesn't look the best. But I do have a soft spot for that park because Wild One used to be 15 minutes from my parents' house at Paragon Park. I never got to ride it when it was at Nantasket, but it's a fine park if you want to go for coasters. Chief Beef, congrats to you. I love your videos. Thank you. Coaster Tori, when was the last time you had a bit of fear for a coaster? Probably one of the coasters that I've ridden so many times that I still just feel a little fear when I go on is anytime I'm in the Sky Rush in the back row. I love that ride, but just that drop feels like a car crash in the best way possible. And that drop always gives me butterflies going over the top. But in terms of the last time I rode a coaster that I almost wasn't sure if I'd go on it, probably when I originally rode King Ka like a decade ago. But once I rode that, everything else after that didn't seem quite as intense, just because I rode, the tallest, fastest ride out there. Coaster Daddy, what kind of music do you enjoy? Favorite artists? Just a lot of like instrumentals that I can just have in the background, like when I'm driving or getting work done during the day. Don't necessarily have a favorite artist. Usually for me, it's where I hear a song and if I associate with a happy memory, like mentioned ELO's Fire on High, any music you hear at an amusement park, like Helix's theme song, just because it brings back happy memories. Theme park predictions. Is your home park Canobie Lake? Yeah, that's my home park. This was the first year they had season passes, so I was expecting to go a bit more after work, but the park was only open Thursday through Sunday this year, but still went more than I've gone any other year. Thomas Harper, will Canada's Wonderland ever get a decent invert? I think they'll get a decent looping coaster. I'm not sure if they'd go with another invert per se, just because they already have one in the park. I think they'd maybe go for something like a wing coaster, but they definitely are due for a coaster with some type of inversions in it. I mean, they have Yukon Striker, but it's something that really focuses on the inversions. Does Albania need Badger State coasters? Does Albania need a Togo Strata spinning floorless flying coaster? Without even holding one in the vehicle, I'm just trying. Yeah, you'd follow your death. I'll go with nowhere needs that, but if you want to make that in Roller Coaster Tycoon, I'd love to see it. Law enforcement. Oh, you're doing the ultra budget strategy by having an apartment and go on lots of coaster trips. That's what I want to do. I'm on my own. I'm really lucky where I have a job that I work for a multinational company doing mechanical engineering, and I have to travel to the other sites that we have across the U.S. We have sites over in Europe, and I go visit our suppliers. I go visit the customers. So there's a lot of reasons I can travel or for conferences, and because I live alone, I'm young. I'm happy to volunteer to go on those trips, especially because I can add amusement parks on the weekends afterwards. Whereas my coworkers or families, they really don't want to travel. So I'm always willing to go on those trips, and it works out well for me. Coaster Corsair, what are your thoughts on Six Flags Magic Mountain? Best coaster lineup at Six Flags for sure. One of the best coaster lineups in the world. The operations at that park aren't my favorite, but in terms of pure coasters, that's a great park. Badger State coasters. Do you listen to any AC/DC music? Not really, to be honest. Coaster Insights. Do you think La Ronde is an underrated park? I think it gets more hate than it should get. I went to the park and it took me 2 hours to get in the park. The line for the metal detectors was backed up past the train station. I thought that was a mistake when I got there, but no, that's how long it took to get in the park. Once I got inside, the operations weren't great, but they weren't legendarily bad. Once I was in the park, and Goliath was a really good B&M hyper. Vampire was one of the best Batman clones, and the park had some really nice flat rides. So I didn't want to let my experience get in the park ruin it. Thunder Thrills. Do you like the Mr. Freeze clone? Absolutely. I love that park. I love that ride. Very intense. Love the inverted top hat. William Forceman, what coaster did you grow up on at Six Flags New England? So a funny story about that. I actually never went to Six Flags New England until I graduated middle school. My parents took me there when it was Riverside way back in the 1990s. So I went on the kiddie coaster that was called Little Ricky's Little Twister at the time. But I never went back to Six Flags New England until I was over the magical 54-inch height requirement and went back and, rode all the big ones in one day. I grew up more going to Canobie Lake Park and Lake Compounce and Quasi and Storyland Sands Village. Coaster Cloud, do you think Valley Fair will get a Raptor or an Invert in the now closed Dinosaurs Alive plot? I feel like they wouldn't get a B&M Invert just because I don't think they have their Cedar Fair would invest that much in the park. I still think their next edition is going to be a water park because they've been working on the infrastructure back there, and Excalibur's been rumored to leave forever. But if they got a new coaster, I think a Raptor would be great for them, or maybe one of those compact Gerstlauer coasters like Hang Time. Theme park POV. Have you gone to Six Flags Magic Mountain? Yes, I actually went about a week before all the shutdowns happened. Really liked that park. Civilian Satellite, what's the farthest coaster from home you've been on? Without looking, I don't know what's further away from here, if it's Dubai or Japan, so something there, so Formula Rosa or just anything in Japan. William Forceman, why did you start a YouTube channel? Touched on this at the beginning, but basically when the pandemic hit, couldn't travel to parks. All the sports leagues I played in, they were canceled and haven't started back up. So I was just looking for a way to express my love for amusement parks, and I was sitting on a bunch of photos from over the years. So figured, why not? Let's start making some videos. And when the parks reopened, I started taking some more video footage because it's a lot easier to make a video from videos. Land Enforcement, what's the most underrated coaster you've ridden? Another one I touched on, Surf Coaster Leviathan out in Japan. Great airtime, good helixes, and very surprising because it looked like a standard jet coaster, but that ride was surprisingly aggressive. Coaster Tory, what's the top park in your bucket list? For me, it's probably Energylandia because of that roller coaster collection, or Shanghai Disneyland just because I love the Disney parks and I really want to get on Tron Pirates. Though with Magic Kingdom getting Tron, really the key for me to go there would be to go on their Pirates ride. Coaster Corsair, do you think Ghost Rider is good? I love Ghost Rider. It's a borderline top 10 wooden roller coaster for me. Very fast start to finish, no dead spots. The airtime's good, and then some great laterals at the end. Looks like you're not a big fan of it, but I never rode it before. I never rode it before the GCI retrack. I imagine it probably had some better airtime when it ran with the PTCs, but it does what I want, where it's a great paced ride. Coaster Insights, best manufacturer. Oops, this chat scrolled down. My favorite manufacturer is probably Rocky Mountain Construction, just because they don't have a bad ride, and top to bottom, they're fantastic. There are other manufacturers like B&M. That you're getting a reliable ride with them. Intamin, they're always innovating. Really, I'm a big fan of all those manufacturers. They all have their pros and cons. Well, unless you're talking RCCA, that company's just a disaster. Coldplay 325. Do you think B&M would make a strata coaster like their Giga coasters with lift hills? I imagine it just comes down to who would pay for it, because that'd be a pretty expensive lift structure, and then I imagine if you go for a lift that tall, you'd want to have a big ride with it. If something like that gets built, honestly, I almost feel like it'd be China right now because of how they're investing so much in their theme parks. Coaster Day, if you were to start a channel related to anything besides coasters, what would it be? Probably sports, just because I'm a big sports fan. Love basketball, baseball, and football. Lane Forceman, what's Nitro's strongest airtime hill? So if you go during holiday in the park, Six Flags Great Adventure will run that ride, and they do not have temperature limits. Last year I was there with my friend, and we were the only two people on the train, and the temperatures in the teens. And I wasn't sure if they would be able to dispatch us with that few people on the train. They sent us around, and it crawled through the first half. But then when we hit the mid-course brake run, the brake run was turned off, so we shot right through it. And the drop off the mid-course gave ejector airtime because it's designed to slow down typically. And the return run gave airtime similar to the final few hills on Fury. I was not expecting that in Nitro. I didn't know it had it in it. And normally I like Nitro. It's a solid ride. Coaster Insights, do you see Cedar Point getting a GCI or a Gerstlauer like hang time? I think a Gerstlauer might work for them because Cedar Point's all about records, and Gerstlauer is one of those companies that I think could break the inversion record for them if that's a record they want to go for, especially because that would sort of show up the other nearby park in Kennywood. Coaster Insight says Nitro of a rattle. I think it depends which train you're in, but the train I rode in earlier this summer, it rattled pretty badly in the valleys in the first half. Coaster Insights, what parks have you been to? I've been to a lot of parks, I think like 200 or so. I've been to Six Flags Over Georgia, and that's my favorite Superman clone. Coaster Tory, how old were you when you were turned into a coaster enthusiast and most underrated manufacturer? I always remember loving roller coasters. This is a really stupid memory, but I remember having like a Storyland puzzle when I was like 2 or 3, and my parents explicitly told me I was too short to ride Polar Coaster when we were there the year before, apparently. So that meant I must have been like age 2 as I was doing that puzzle, and I already loved parks at that age. And my most underrated manufacturer. I think my most underrated manufacturer is probably Gravity Group, just because when everyone's talking about great wood coaster designers, usually I hear GCI get brought up, or people remember the great rides from CCI, which I love CCI too. And I just don't think Gravity Group gets enough appreciation for how great their rides are, because they can do the big stuff like Voyage or Hades 360, but they can also make those little rides like Roarosaurus or Wooden Warrior that are chock full of airtime. Coaster insights. Were you scared when you went on your first Hyper or Giga? So yeah, I was scared of my first Hyper. That was Steel Force at Dorney Park. It's kind of funny looking back that I was scared of that ride at one point, considering it's called Steel Forceless now. Even though I think that ride's pretty darn good. But yeah, I was scared to get on that one. I waited until night to get on it, and it actually had a line way back in 2005 when I rode it, and I got off and loved it. And my first Giga, I sort of skipped that, went straight to King Ka. So that one scared me too, because going from, I think my previous tallest ride before that was probably Nitro, and then going right up to King Ka. It's cool, dude. What do you think of Arnold's Park? I think Arnold's Park's a cute little park. Legend gave great rides when I was there, because it was like 100 degrees, and the operators even said it was running fast. And I also remember the operators there were great. One of them kept riding Legend with us, and he brought a wireless speaker with him, and was just blasting music and taking requests during the ride. So whoever would have thought a 1920s Woody would have onboard audio. The Golden Duvia, favorite park in Europe. That's a coin flip for me between Phantasialand and Europa. I would probably give it to Europa just because it's a bigger park, but I think Phantasialand, on average, each ride there's better than Europa. It's more dense with quality. Coaster Insights, thoughts on Six Flags Great America. I've only been there once, but I remember being a much more beautiful than your average Six Flags park, and a great coaster collection. Coldplay 325. Can you guess why my YouTube channel name is Coldplay 325? I'm guessing you love Coldplay and Fury 325. It's cool to do. If you could ride one defunct coaster, which one? I would probably go with Eagles Fortress, just because the Aero Suspended I've been on been pretty good, but Eagles Fortress apparently had a much better, an incredible reputation. I love terrain rides, and that ride looked like it held its speed all the way down the mountain, and I would have loved to try that. Coaster Insights, I'd put a launcher or cable lift on a BM Strata. If they build a launch that tall, I don't think it would come for a while, considering their first launch was Thunderbird, which is quite a bit smaller. Coaster Insights, what's your review in Six Flags Over Georgia? Similar to Six Flags Great America, where it's another very beautiful park, good coaster lineup. Twisted Cyclone really round out their lineup well and gave them a nice one too, with Goliath and Twisted Cyclone. And do you see Six Flags Over Georgia retracking Great American Scream Machine with RMC track? I don't know what to do with that ride, but that's a ride. I know it's historic. I know it's a beautiful ride in the water, but that ride's brutal. I do not like that ride. Coaster Insights, best kiddie coaster. Mentioned that earlier, but I love Bubbles, the coaster at Storybook Land in New Jersey. Aggressive little miler, and it shoots bubbles at you in the lift, hence the name. Thunder Thrills, thanks for doing the stream. Yeah, and thanks for everyone for subscribing. I just figured it'd be cool to do a live stream, considering I've never done one before. Nick the Pet Rock, what do you think about California's Great America? So I was actually out for an internship out in California one summer, right up near California's Great America, so I went there quite a bit in 2014. And then I went back a few years ago for Winterfest, and they did a great job at Winterfest. The lights were beautiful, and Railblazer is a great fit for the park. Flight Deck is a really short but aggressive little invert, and Gold Striker, even though it was running rougher when I went last time, it's still a really good wooden coaster. Patrick Cadiz, is Dimeback actually rough or just shaky in certain places? I wouldn't call it rough, but it definitely has a rattle in the valleys in the first half. Not painful. It doesn't cause me a headache, but you will feel it. Coaster Insight, thoughts on Light Coaster? I haven't been on that one, but it looks like a great ride. Everyone I know that's ridden it says it's very forceful, has some airtime. Coaster Tori, who signed the basketball behind you? That was by Paul Pierce. After he retired, he's my favorite basketball player. Ultimate Parks, what are your thoughts on Carnan? I love Shortest Carnan. It's one of my favorite coasters. I think it's in my top 5 steel. If not, it's right there. Having a ride that big that has that type of theming is really rare, and it's a really aggressive ride. Incredible drop. very good airtime, very whippy transitions, and it has a few surprises. No one posted the surprises in the comments. And one tip I can have: do not go to the RCDB page for Karnan, because I accidentally had the surprise spoiled before I got there, and it would have been better if I didn't know it was going to happen. Caleb Moore, how many credits? 1,012. Coaster Insights, what's your favorite football team? I know I'm not popular for saying this, but I do live in Boston, so New England Patriots. Thunder Thrills, worst aero coaster you've been on? Earlier in this live stream, I mentioned it was one of those old corkscrews with the really cramped trains, like the one at Michigan's Adventure. But I just forgot about Carolina Gold Rusher at Carowinds. That ride, the transition in that helix is brutal, and that ride is way more painful than it should be for a ride that small. Nick the Pet Rock, what's the worst color on a coaster besides X? I'm not a fan of those coasters that have like a yellow paint scheme and like another like orange support. For some reason, the coaster I'm thinking of that I don't like the look of is Thunderhawk at Michigan's Adventure, even though I love the ride's placement on the water. Coaster Daddy, what camera do you use for park footage and microphone do you use? So the microphone I use is, I have no clue how to say this, a TKGOU microphone with a pop filter. And in the parks, I just use a Canon G7X. Thunder Thrills, what's your opinion on Six Flags claiming Great America is the cleanest theme park in the world? I'm sure they had someone vote on that, just like how Great Escape is the cleanest park in New York, a billboard that they have as you're leaving the park. Coaster Insights, how do you film POVs without the park stopping you? So I only film POVs if the park explicitly allows you, and I always ask the operators permission. There are several parks where I've seen others on the train pull out their phones and not have anything said to them. But if you ask the op, they'll say no, and I just respect their opinion and what happens. Like for Canobles, you have to go to guest services, show them you have a GoPro mount, and they'll give you a card that you show the operators saying you can film. Other parts like Disney are really lax and let you film there. And then other places, like you can film on dark rides and like Ferris wheels usually. But a lot of the major parks in the U.S., they really don't let you film on the coasters. But again, just ask permission. You don't want to get kicked out of the park. Thunderthrills, did you expect to hit 1,000 subscribers before the stream started? I honestly had no clue what would happen. I just wanted to, like I said, during the pandemic, I was just looking for something to keep busy, and I found, and it was a good way to express my love of roller coasters and link up with other enthusiasts. Jason Forbes, there's some large-eyed woodland animals behind. Yeah, I have a large plush collection from parks. Tokyo Disneyland made a killing off me for merchandise. And Tokyo Disneyland's crazy because they have gift shops for every single character. Like they have an entire Donald gift shop. They have a Chip and Dale gift shop. They have gift shops for every character there. And a poop, Patrick Cadiz, and a poop emoji, I think. Yeah, it's actually a hat. I forget where I got that, but I won it at an arcade, I think. Coaster Tori, what do you do as a job other than YouTube? So YouTube's just a hobby I do on the side. I'm a mechanical engineer for a medical company. X Coasters Forever, where's Skyrush rank for you? It's a top 5 steel coaster for me. Very aggressive ride. Love the airtime. And I don't find the restraints painful, though I can see how they would be painful for others. Ultimate Perks, what's the worst GER steak you've ever had? Well, I think GER steak, you're referring to like how the track can rattle and give you a headache. But the worst I can think of would just be the first time I rode Untamed at Canobie, I had no clue that the transition into that cutback and the helix was going to be as rough as it was. So I hit my head pretty bad there. But now I know to lean forward during those parts. But though the Gerstlauer at IMG World's Adventure Predator, that one was really shaky, and that surprised me, even though, and I've ridden Untamed, so I knew where the rough patches were, but the track in general was really shaky in that one. Coaster Insights, thoughts on Goliath that slides over Georgia and its color scheme. I like the ride's placement as you enter the park because you can see that from the entrance plaza. I know the paint's faded in that one, and I wish they'd give it a fresh coat of paint like they did for Georgia Scorcher. But it did have a rattle the last time I rode it. But in terms of the airtime, it's among the strongest like Flagector airtime you can get in a B&M Hyper. Coaster Tory, is Riddler's Revenge at Six Flags Magic Mountain a good ride? So I never used to like Riddler's Revenge just because the first time I rode, I didn't know how to ride it correctly, and it beat me up pretty bad. But ever since I've learned how to ride B&M stand-ups, I love Riddler's Revenge. The way to ride them is you want to make sure that bike seat is well below your crotch, so that way it's not riding up in there during the ride. And to do that, you want to have the over-the-shoulder restraint jammed into your shoulders. So you sort of slouch down a bit until the seats lock, and then when you stand up, you're being jammed in the restraint. Yes, it does put pressure on your shoulders, but it gets your ears above the restraint, so there's no head banging, and I'd rather that. Jason Forbes, how many can close their eyes and recognize the arrow chain lift? I think a lot of us can. The Coaster Roaster, this is a very random, but what do you think of Nickelodeon Universe at Mall of America? So I much prefer that one over the one in New Jersey. The one in New Jersey feels like a warehouse, whereas the one in Minnesota feels like an outdoor park. And I mean that as a compliment. I love all the trees in that park. It's very beautiful. I love the kinetic energy with the mall on all sides. And Log Chute's one of my favorite rides, coaster or non-coaster. Coaster Eat Keychain, I'm late. Sorry. How long has the stream been? I think it's been going on for about half hour so far. Thunder Thrills, is there a spot on a coaster where you didn't expect it to have airtime? I touched on it earlier. The one I can think of, just because I brought this coaster up a few times, Surf Coaster Leviathan at Sea Paradise. Again, I thought that was just going to be your average jet coaster, a rather slow and meandering ride, but that ride had some really strong airtime, and I had ridden Kawasami a few days prior, and Surf Coaster Leviathan was better. Coaster Insights, do you know that Python's Plunge that's coming to Six Flags over Georgia Whitewater is a coaster based the same as the water coaster going to Six Flags Great America? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Six Flags had more of those water coasters because Thunder Rapids at Fiesta Texas seems quite popular when I was there. Thunder Thrills, what's a coaster you had high expectations for and it didn't meet them? Let's see. Yeah, it's hard for me to think like which ones I had high expectations for and didn't meet. I'm trying to think of a few off the top of my head. Like one that comes to mind is I was really disappointed by Space Mountain in Tokyo Disney land just because I'm used to the one in California with the wind machines and how fast that one runs, but the one in Japan was considerably slower. What are some other ones that I had high expectations for? I didn't meet them. I know I had a video for disappointing coasters, and I just can't remember which ones I had there off the top of my head. But if you watch that video, that probably has the answers there. What's the best and worst wooden coaster you've ever been on? By Epic Gamer 2010. So my favorite coaster is Lightning Rod, so that's my favorite wood coaster easily. That ride's perfect pacing. There's not an inch of wasted track in that ride. Worst wooden coaster, it's my least favorite ride overall. That's Coaster Express at Parque Warner Madrid. That ride's painful. It'll kill your back, and the T-bar restraint will smack against your legs the whole time. Coaster Insights, top 5 week B&M hypers. The two that are at the bottom, I know for sure, are Hollywood Dream at Universal Studios Japan and Intimidator at Carowinds. I actually got a ride last year in Intimidator. The trims didn't kill the ride. It just is still considerably slower than the other B&M hypers. But my least favorite is Hollywood Dream, just because you cannot pick your seat in that ride, and I kept getting put in the middle. And I know B&M hypers, I tend to like them best in the back, but I just couldn't get the back no matter how many times I rode it. And that one is a bit smaller, so it might not have as many opportunities for airtime. Coach Keishan, congrats on 1,000 subscribers. Thank you. Jason Forbes, Intimate or B&M? If I were a park, I'd prefer B&M just because they're a lot more reliable and you are getting, a marketable ride that you know is going to run consistently. But as an enthusiast, I prefer Intimate just because their rides tend to be more aggressive and they tend to innovate a bit more than B&M. But when B&M innovates, their things work flawlessly from day one. Like look at Thunderbird, the first launch wing coaster, and that ride rarely ever seemed to go down. Thunder Thrills, what's the best first drop you've ever experienced? There are a few that come to mind. Like I love the B&M Giga drops just because of how long and sustained that airtime is. Expedition G-Force's drop is insane with the ejector airtime and crazy laterals. I also love Iron Rattler's drop just because of how the airtime, you have the really strong ejector airtime with that S-bend the whole way down that caught me off guard the first ride. And then Schwartz's Karn's drop is amazing as well because it's like Expedition G-Force's drop in the dark. How tall am I? I think I'm like 5'9.5". Lapis Lugo's Games Channel. What coaster do you think Holiday World should get next? I think they should get some type of family coaster that bridges the gap between Howler and Raven. Just because Raven's actually the roughest wood coaster right now, and I think they should have something that's a little more of a milder step up. Something like a Gerstlauer spinner or one of those like Gerstlauer family launch coasters would be great for them. Coaster Insights best stand-up, Riddler's Revenge. Ever since I learned how to ride it, love the forces on that ride. It's a nice long ride. Coaster Keychain, where do you think a Vekoma Firestorm would fit well? So I'd love to see one of those come to the U.S. somewhere, but it sounds like the parent company for Vekoma and SNS wants to use SNS for the American projects. So I guess the Vekoma Firestorm would just go to some of those European parks that are looking for a star ride. Like one park I'd love to see it go to is Nigloland. They have Alpina Blitz, and that ride's great. And I think that park could use a coaster with inversions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Q. What coaster that blew your expectations out of the water? I mentioned it a few times, but Surf Coaster Leviathan, it's above the water, so that's fitting. Max Hagenauer, sorry if I mispronounced that. Favorite drop tower. So I was really skeptical actually when Disney California Adventure updated the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror and the Guardians, but that's actually my favorite version of Tower of Terror now, and I'm shocked it is. I love how that ride starts off with a bang and you're constant, and it just feels a lot more frenetic because you're constantly moving on that one, and the drop sequence feels a lot more random on it. Sorry, just lost my place in the chat trying to catch up with all these. Thunder Thrills, if you could add one coaster at any park, what would it be? I'm obviously going to pick a local park, but one park I'd love to see get something would be Funtown USA. They don't add too much to their dry side, and their only two coasters are Wild Mouse and Excalibur, and I'd love to see them get an inverting ride at last, so they'd be another perfect park to get a Raptor, though. After them being closed for all of this year, I don't think they're going to have any additions for a while. The Quacken, what's your coaster count? 1,012. Coaster Tory, what's your dream coaster? Need manufacturer and stats for the coaster? So Lightning Rod's pretty darn close to what I want because the things I love a great setting, love perfect pacing, and I just love crazy amounts of airtime. So I guess one of the other things I'd want, I know it's been an enthusiast pipe dream for a while, I'd love to see Cedar Point eventually get that their 500-foot coaster. I'd love for it to just be an aggressive ride packed with like camelbacks and speed hills. I'm guessing if they did something like that, it would probably have to be Intamin, though. If they could ever do a B&M 500-footer with a traditional lift and that drop would last forever. I'd love that, but I think that's a bit unlikely. Adventures by Alex. I think Six Flags New England should upgrade Typhoon. So I haven't been on Typhoon in quite some time just because I don't go to the water park often there because it's usually pretty busy. And most of my visits occur before Memorial Day or after Labor Day. But Typhoon just doesn't have the same oomph as the later water coasters, and I think that one has quite a bit of downtime because it is one of the earlier ones. Coaster Roaster, have you ridden any backyard coasters other than Blue Flash? I guess you could count anything at Canobie's as a backyard coaster, so if you count those, yes, but if not, no. Coaster Insights, thoughts on Georgia Scorcher. So I rode that before I figured out how to ride B&M stand-ups by lowering their strain against your shoulders. But even when I rode it, just having no clue how to, that's by far the smoothest floorless. I don't remember it being as forceful as the other ones, but it's a really unique layout for a floorless coaster, and it's definitely the smoothest one. Jason Forbes, being a mechanical engineer, how long until the initial energy from the first drop is completely replaced by the subsequent hills? That's a function of a lot of different things. How heavy is the train, how many people are on it. That's what the manufacturers are for. I design medical devices. What is Thunder Thrills? What is a non-family coaster you just consider meh? I'm sorry if any Valley Fair home fans are there, but I'm going to say Wild Thing. The first half I don't hate, but that brake run absolutely kills the second half of the ride, and it's a shame because I've seen that video if they run it trimless how fast it can go into the brake run, and I know how good those return runs can be from Steel Force. Coaster Keychain, the trailer for Velocicoaster came out today. Okay, I'll have to check that out because I haven't seen it, but I'm really excited for that ride. Quack and congrats on 1,000 subscribers. Thank you. Coaster Insights. Do you think Velocicoaster will be the best coaster in the world? I don't think it will be. I think it'll be very good, and I think it'll probably be the best ride in that park. And if it is, I love Hagrid, so that's saying a lot. I think it'll probably be like a top 25 steel coaster for me, but I just really want to see all the final theming added, and it comes down to how aggressive those transitions feel. If those transitions are aggressive and there's no dead spots, it has a potential to move up very high in my list. Adventures by Alex. Have you been to Canobie this summer? Yeah, I think I've been 6 or 7 times this year because it's the first year they've had season passes. They've done a really good job handling the pandemic. Thunder Thrills. What's your opinion on Raging Bull? You have to ride in the back row, but if you ride in the back row, that ride has some really nice airtime, particularly in the first drop, and even in the second half, after the trim, still has good airtime. But anywhere else, that ride's a snooze fest. Adventures by Alex. If you spoke Japanese, you could have asked for the back. So I actually learned how to say the back row and front row in Japanese. I remember one was Ikiban. I forget if that was front row or row 8, but the parks in Japan, they don't take seat requests. They assign the trains front to back, and that's how they do it. The only parks over there that took seating requests were Tokyo Disneyland, and Tobu Zoo allowed you to pick your seat in Kawasami because there was literally no one else at the park that day. Coaster Roaster, before he was taken down, did you watch Canada Coaster Fan? Your channel really reminds me. Yep, I watch quite a bit of coaster YouTubers, and I really liked his content. Coaster Keychain, Vekoma or Mac? So I haven't been on any of the new Vekomas outside of like Dragonflyer, so I don't think it's fair to answer that until I've been on some of those newer Vekomas like Let Coaster or Abyssus, but I love what Mac does, and the new Vekomas look great too. Thunder Thrills. Are there any coasters that are generally disliked by the public, but you personally really enjoy? So I used to really like Rolling Thunder at Six Flags Great Adventure. I know people didn't like that ride, and no one really cared when it was removed. But the last time I was there, I went on a rainy day, and the ride was giving some really good airtime on the return run. Coaster Keychain, RMC or GCI? RMC by far. I love every ride from RMC. Coaster Insights, Raging Bull looks better than Diamondback. I prefer Diamondback I prefer Diamondback just because it's more consistent seat to seat, and I think the back row on Diamondback is still better than the back row on Raging Bull. But Raging Bull has a much more unique layout. Adventures by Alex. What if Kings Dominion rebuilds Volcano as a B&M launch inverted coaster? Considering they took the Volcano down, I don't think they'd call something else Volcano again. But then again, Cedar Fair does seem to like to honor the history of their parks. I think they might just go for a traditional wing coaster, but they definitely should get some sort of coaster in that plot of land sometime in the near future, though. I hope the SS Free Spin doesn't delay any other additions for a while. X Coaster Forever Skyrush is the best drop in the world. Yeah, that's one of my favorite drops too. Thunder Thrills, what's your favorite dark ride? Not only favorite dark ride, but one of my favorite rides in the world, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. I don't want to go too much into detail on it just because there are some spoilers about that ride, but I'll just say the second you step in the queue line, it's immersive start to finish. I have a review on that goes into complete detail on that ride. But I thought when it was originally announced, I thought Rise of the Resistance was going to be a nice ride. I didn't think it was going to be like one of the best rides in the world, and that's what it turned out to be. Jason Forrest, what coaster is most impressive with regards to utilization of initial energy? Steel Vengeance would be mine. Steel Vengeance does a great job, but for me, I have to go with Voyage. The fact that ride is 6,500 feet long with one lift hill, and the way that ride uses the terrain without you realizing it, that's really impressive how Gravity Group designed that. Thunder Thrills, most underrated park you've visited. I know I have a video on that. I can't think of which park off the top of my head is the most underrated, but some of the ones that come to mind are Nigloland and I think it's 3 hours east of Paris. I knew that park had Alpina Blitz, but I didn't realize how gorgeous that park was going to be, and a lot of the other rides there just have some really nice theming to them. And another one in Japan that I didn't know of until I went there was New Ryoma World. That park didn't have many attractions, but the attractions they all were really well themed. Like they had a Space Mountain ripoff that had better theming than the original Space Mountains. Coaster Insights. You got to ride Expedition G-Force. Yeah, I'm really lucky to be on that. Have gotten on that because that's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite coasters, and I had seen that for years. Adventures by Alex. Should Holiday World RMC Raven? I think they should just keep on retracking because the layout does a lot as is, and it's a fun ride. I'd rather if Holiday World was going to invest a lot of money that they put into a new coaster. Coaster keychain, Energylandia or Phantasialand. So I have never been to Energylandia, but Phantasialand is one of my favorite parks in the world. Based off what I've heard about Energylandia, it almost sounds like you have some elite coasters, and then the rest of the park just feels sort of hollow. I find it hard to believe it could be Phantasialand because that ride has thrills and immersive theming, and I love that combination. It reminds me sort of a European Silver Dollar City. So I can't say for sure, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be Phantasialand. Coaster Daddy, thanks for the awesome stream. Congrats, heading off to bed. Thanks for joining. Sorry if I butchered this name. Gam Wasasa. What coaster you've ridden that you've had very high expectations for, but the coaster crushed them anyway? Probably Schwerter's Carnon because I knew that everyone talks about how intense that ride is, but I didn't realize how good the theming was going to be on that ride. Outside of that, that's the one that comes off the top of my head. Whoops. Sorry, I lost my spot in the chat. I'm gonna try to get to all these. Sorry, I'm a bit behind on the messages. Coaster Insights, have you ever seen a fight at a park? Yeah, I remember seeing a really bad one at Hershey Park when I was younger. I was in line for Lightning Racer, and these three guys were having a fight on the platform, and one of them threw someone over the railing onto the exit ramp. We didn't realize the exit ramp was on the other side. We thought he was thrown down in the structure. I've never been in danger, but I have seen fights. I also saw one on the Thunderbolt as I was riding it because you have to have a partner for that ride. And the person next to me was busy. He pulled the hoodie over his friend's head and they're sucker punching him in the head. That was sort of terrifying, but thankfully they just left me alone. I was just enjoying the laterals on the ride. Thoughts on Montu, one of the best inverted coasters, very forceful, and I love the theming and trenches. Thunder Thrills, what's your favorite water park? Atlantis Aquaventure, mentioned that earlier, but they have 4 or 5 water coasters, very beautiful park, some intense body slides, and very lush. The Quack, and have you ever been to Gold Reef City in South Africa? I have not. It's a park that's on my bucket list, but I'm just not sure when I'll get to South Africa. Coaster Insights, thoughts on Acrophobia. That's one of my favorite drop towers. Unfortunately, it was closed last time I was at Over Georgia, but the first time I rode it, those tilting seats, that really terrified me, and I loved it. Epic Gamer 2010, do you like water parks? I love water parks if they have unique attractions, especially if they have water coasters. I don't tend to go to water parks when they're attached to a park unless they have a water coaster, but I'll go to the big ones. I love, I enjoyed Noah's Ark. I like Blizzard Beach. And I love the ones over in Dubai because those water parks are insane. Max Hagenauer, Intamin or Larson drop towers. The Larson arm ones are probably my favorite on average, but some of the really tall Intamin ones with the tilting seats like Hurricane Condor I prefer. But size for size, I prefer the arm Larson ones. Coaster Tori, out of all the defunct coasters you've ridden, which one do you wish you could have gotten a few more rides on? Probably Dueling Dragons, just because I love that ride, but I guess I took for granted how it never had a line. The last time I was at that park, I remember thinking, oh, this will be here for a while, so I'll come back next time and get more rides, and I never made it back. But I think I got 4 rides on each side at least. I just should have gotten more. Coaster Roaster, do you ever ride the original test track? I did. Personally, it's the best non-coaster ride I've ever ridden. I did ride the original test track. I do prefer the Photron overlay to it, but I love the original test track, especially as a kid. Coaster Keychain, Pantheon or Velocicoaster, the battle between Intamins. I think the individual elements on Pantheon look better than the individual elements on Velocicoaster, but I think Velocicoaster's length would have me liking that ride better overall. Coaster Insights, thoughts on Mindbender. If you have been on it, I think it's better than Shockwave. I assume you mean the Over Georgia one. I assume you mean Mindbender over Georgia and Shockwave it over Texas, but Shockwave it over Texas, I much prefer that over Mindbender. I know Mindbender is a better setting, but Shockwave has much better airtime, and the loops feel a lot more forceful, especially because they're back-to-back. X Coasters Forever. Which coaster do you find more intense, Lightning Rush, Sky Rush? Both are very intense, but Sky Rush, those restraints, I know people aren't big fans of them, but you feel very exposed in that ride. Coaster Insights. Well, it makes Six Flags a better company. I know this probably isn't a very popular thing to say, but honestly, if they increase the price of the season passes, because they're basically giving the gate away for free and then upcharging everything afterwards. And I know a lot of people go to Six Flags and they just feel like they're nickel and dimed at all points. And I almost wish they had a higher admission because, $60 for a season pass that gets you all the parks. Like, I would easily pay a lot more for that. Thunder Thrills. What's your number one bucket list coaster? Probably the number one bucket list coaster for me is T-Express, because I love the start of El Toro, and T-Express has a very similar start, and I also love Balder. My problem with Balder is that it does not have a good first drop. T-Express looks like it takes the best of both those rides and puts them together, and so that would be a contender for one of my favorite rides. Coaster Keychain. I think Kennywood needs a drop tower. They still. I think Pitfall used to be in that final helix on Fam's Revenge, and I'd love to see them add another drop tower there because overlooking the ravine, it feels a lot taller than it actually is. Coaster Insights. What's the longest coaster you've been on? I've been on Steel Dragon 2000, so that. Thunder Thrills. How is Superman Al Ultimo Escape? Superman in Mexico is an excellent ride. I actually prefer it to Medusa. Superman has the really unrestricted Morgan restraints, and the airtime is quite a bit stronger than the ones in the U.S., especially if you ride it and they're not stacking the trains, because that means you blow through the mid-course brake run and get some great air in the return run. Coaster Insights. Do you think the Voyage is overrated, underrated, or just rated? It's my number 2 favorite coaster. I think it's deserving of all the praise it gets. The one thing that it might be a little controversial, but I know everyone at Hollywood Nights loves the fact the ride runs trimless. I don't think the fact the ride runs trimless makes a big difference for me. What makes a big difference for me is how I can get night rides on it, because that park usually closes early. If I could get night rides in Voyage, if I could always get night rides in Voyage or always get trimless rides, I'd pick the night rides. Boomerang Reverse, yay, face reveal. I've already seen your face, but oh well. Congrats on 1,000 subscribers. Thanks. Yeah, remember running you at Silver Dollar City. Coaster Insights. Do you play The Sims? I never got into The Sims. Just Roller Coaster Tycoon and like sports games. Coaster Keychain advice for a small coaster channel like mine. Just be very when you go to amusement parks, don't look for what's wrong. Look at what you love about the park and focus on that, because that'll give you you always want to talk about positive things. Stanford Bridge. Hey Canobie, congrats on 1,000 subscribers. Thank you. Coaster Insights. Have you ever been copyrighted? I have not. If I'm using copyright content from another creator, I will shoot them a message and ask. Or I'll try to use Creative Commons stuff, or I'll use like the official park footage where, if anything, I'm giving them free publicity. Adventures by Alex. Canby knows to build a slide tower on the other side of Castaway Island. They should do a pro side Campbell or a pro side Tornado. What I think that park's ultimately going to do is, if you look at where the Corkscrew is, it's right next to Castaway Island. I always wanted them to remove Corkscrew for another coaster, but logically, I think Corkscrew, if they do remove that, it's going to be for a water park edition. If you look at the map, it's right there. Just to Carlo, Ichiban's front row. Yeah, that makes sense. It's been 2 years since I was there, and I don't remember anymore. Coaster Insights. How was your experience at HoloFest? So I haven't been to HoloFest yet. Six Flags in New Jersey is the Six Flags Great Adventure is the closest Six Flags is open to me. I plan to go again at some point this year. Maybe this weekend or the weekend. Well, probably not the weekend after, because Columbus Day weekend. But I do plan to go, and I probably won't go in any of the mazes. I love Halloween events because it extends the season. Coach Chris can't stay, but congrats on 1,000 subscribers. Well, if you're not there, sorry you left already, but thanks again. Coaster says, what would be the best park in the world if Cedar Point is Slice Magic Mountain in Great America and all the good parks were not exciting? I mean, all those parks, have great coaster lineups, and the atmospheres of those parks are pretty good. Just some of the Six Flags parks I wish had better operations. Coaster Keychain is Canobie's a good park to visit. I hear Phoenix is insane. Canobie's is one of my favorite parks in the world. I love that park. One of my favorite parks anywhere. And Phoenix, getting that level of airtime with no seatbelt and just buzz bars is incredible. That's one of my favorite coasters anywhere. Max Hagar, would you rather have a fantastic first drop and a boring layout, or have a good layout and an okay drop? I'd rather the second, because as good as a first drop can be, if that's all the ride is, what's it, a drop tower? Whereas if you have an okay drop with a good layout, I'll love that ride. Look at Boulder Dash. The first drop in that ride's just okay. It doesn't really give any airtime. If you're towards the back, you get some laterals, but it's everything after the drop that matters in that ride. Coaster Insights, is the Beast overrated? As a coaster, yes. It just doesn't do too much with all that track, but as an experience at night, it's every bit as good as people say. You truly feel isolated in the woods. Thunder Thrills, what's the best traditional wooden coaster you've ridden? So no RMC or Intamin prefabs. Phoenix at Canobie's. Love the minimalistic restraints and all that airtime you get. X-Coaster Enthusiast, what state do you live in? I live in Massachusetts. Same. Jason Forbes, yep, Voyage is a great one. Yep, I love that ride. Andy Roman, Wicked or Cannibal? There seems to be a lot of debate between the two. I much prefer Cannibal. Cannibal has one of my favorite drops in a coaster. To have a beyond vertical drop that's that big with no trims is incredible. And the fact it's with just lap bars. Wicked, I love the launch. I love the top. I just love the first half in Wicked, but the second half really dies. Whoops. Sorry, lost my place in the chat again. BLM Supporter 5, thoughts on Montu? One of my favorite B&M inverts, very forceful, smooth, and I love the theming that supports it. Nick the Pet Rock, how would you improve Patriot, California's Great America's layout? I think Patriot is what it is. I'd rather them put money into building another new edition, because they have that huge expansion plan. I'm hoping things still come to fruition like that Hyper, but I know the pandemic probably set them back, and I know that Hyper was rumored to be canceled anyway. Andy Roman, can you do a review on Osiris, or however you spell it? Yeah, I plan to review that one. That's my favorite B&M invert. It's not even close. That ride's very forceful, similar theming to Montu. And if you ride in the back row, that ride has like a half dozen airtime moments, which I was not expecting. And so actually, I remember someone asked me what my most shocking coasters was. That was the one that shocked me the most. I went in expecting that to be – I heard it wasn't a very good B&M invert. I heard it was relatively forceless, but I don't know what changed in recent rides, but anyone who's ridden it lately loves that ride. And no one had ever mentioned that ride at airtime to me. Coaster Keychain, do you think any other B&M family coasters will ever be built, or will there only be one forever in China? Didn't they build a second one at some point over in China? I don't think U.S. parks would build one just because it's really expensive for what you're getting. But I'm sure it has high reliability and good capacity. Coaster Insights, do you see RMC building an RMC Giga? I can see them doing it someday, just not in the immediate future. I feel like they'll need to get the T-Rex track ready to go, just because I can't see them building a hybrid that's 300 feet tall. I read the Zadra, Jason Forbes, reaches 75 miles per hour and hits the brake run 65 miles per hour. Yeah, that ride looks like it hauls start to finish. I was supposed to ride that this year, but had to cancel a trip with the pandemic. The Quacken, where are some defunct parks you've visited before? One of the ones that comes to mind is Scandia, just to east of Disneyland. I remember that was always on my list to hit for a while, and I had been putting off, but the winter before they closed, I decided to finally bite the bullet and go there. And Scandia Screamer was a lot of fun. Very underrated ride, some scary good airtime. I'm sure I've been to other defunct parks. I just can't. I'm really bad put on the spot thinking of stuff like that off the top of my head. Like I've been to what was it? Enchanted Forest in Rhode Island. Wasn't a big fan of that park even as a kid, but it's now closed. Coaster Insights, have you ridden Monsters Mansion at Six Flags Over Georgia? Yeah, I really like that ride. It's a ride you wouldn't expect to exist at a Six Flags park, but it's a lot of fun. Evan Thames, Steel Avengers is ruined due to stapling and layout does too much. There's no such thing as too much airtime to me, and I've never gotten stapled in that ride. What I've heard about Cedar Point is if you try to get an obnoxious amount of room, because a lot of the operators are enthusiasts, they will then staple you as a result. But if I bring the restraint down to where it should be, and I never really have, they usually don't push down any further for me. Thunder Thrills, what's your opinion on Ninja at Six Flags St. Louis? I don't hate that coaster. It definitely is a little shaky at points, but my head's above the over-the-shoulder restraint, so I don't really get hurt in that ride. And that head chopper with the chain return in the Sidewinder is one of my favorite head choppers anywhere. That thing's terrifying. Coaster Keychain, when do you think the B&M Surf Coaster will debut? I figure SeaWorld Orlando will still get one. I think it'll just probably be delayed a year with the pandemic. Coaster Insights, do you think the B&M Surf Coaster will change the industry forever? I don't think it'll change the industry forever, but it'll definitely be another nice ride in B&M's portfolio. X Coasters forever. Well, see you later. I'm glad you were able to make it. Coaster Keychain. Also, will there ever be a larger free spin model? What if the free spin at Kings Dominion is a larger model? I'd love if they get a larger one because I enjoy free spins. For some reason I feel like the largest one would go to China, but I'd love to see one of the larger ones come to the U.S. at some point. Coaster Dash, congrats on 1,000 subscribers, still making way up. Yeah, just keep posting videos. And like I said, just try to be positive in the videos because that's what I really like to see. What are reasons I should visit a park? Coaster Insights, what was the coldest you ever felt on a coaster? So I probably should say Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure because I rode that when I think it was 15 degrees last year. And riding a hyper coaster in that type of weather, your face will absolutely freeze. But I would probably actually go with Rudy's Rapid Transit Coaster at Santa's Village. Most parks will not run a ride in the snow. Santa's Village ran that ride in the snow. And, it's a little Zyre Tivoli coasters with the obnoxiously long trains. So, it goes, 20, 25 miles per hour. But when it's actually snowing and you're riding a ride like that, it is frigid, especially because I had, really thin mittens and they were just soaking up and got wet. Coaster Keychain, do you think I can use a coaster manufacturer's logo on my thumbnails? Are there specific rules for thumbnails? Again, I try to use my own photos if possible. Like if I have a photo with their logo, I use it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with using another manufacturer's logo, especially because, again, you're giving them publicity usually. Usually I make a review because I'm excited to talk about a ride and talk about how good it is. Thunder Throws, what's the most underrated Six Flags park you've been to? I know people tend to like this one a lot, but I'm going to go with Six Flags Fiesta Texas because it's my favorite Six Flags park. Coaster Insights, do you have a video for Six Flags Over Georgia? I do not have any video footage that I personally took at Six Flags Over Georgia, but I have a lot of photos. I'm trying to prioritize videos where I have video footage available. But, if I have a park or a ride that people really want to see and I have a bunch of photos, I can make reviews and videos on those rides. Just know that the compromise is going to be I'm not going to have as much video footage if there's not a lot copyright free out there. Stanford Bridge, you're so far behind the chat. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to catch back up. I want to answer everyone's questions if they're there. Do you mind saying roughly where you live, city or state? I live about 20 minutes north of Boston in Massachusetts. And I have to say Massachusetts because apparently there's a Boston, Pennsylvania I saw when I was going to Kennywood last month. Didn't know that was a thing. Coaster Keychain, thoughts on Adventure Express. Most confusing ending ever for a roller coaster, but decent mine train. Burkham Durham, do you live by yourself? Currently I do. Coaster Insights, do you have a wife or a girlfriend? I have a girlfriend of 5 years. BLM supporter 5. Thoughts on Hulk? I love the first half of that ride, but everything after the mid-course sort of dies. But that first half's as good as any coaster. Marty Hanning, 1,000. Congrats, dude. Thank you. Coaster Insights, thanks for joining. Coaster Keychain, RMC Roar, Six Flags America. Yeah, I'd love to see them RMC that ride. Roar up front is actually decent, but anywhere else it's pretty bumpy and not very good. Whoops. Stanford Bridge. Have you been to Plon before? And if so, do you enjoy it? That was a park I was going to go to this year, but had to cancel those plans for obvious reasons. I really want to get there at some point. Burkham Durkham, what's your thoughts on Jenkins Boardwalk? I think it's probably the best boardwalk in New Jersey for families. The rides seem to be catered more towards younger guests and families. It's a park I probably wouldn't go back to just because there really wasn't anything I loved there. The one thing I loved there was that funhouse. I'm not sure if it's owned by Jenkinson's or it's just on the boardwalk outside, but I'd love to see if that can help. I'd love to see if they can help maintain those rides long term. Evan James, what do you think of Maverick? I live near Dollywood and it's got lightning rod beat for me, crazy intensity. I really like Maverick, but I don't seem to like as much as other enthusiasts. It's a fantastic steel coaster. Love the ride. I just prefer the more traditional hyper coasters and giga coasters over Maverick, but it definitely is a forceful ride. The Quack, and will you come back to Missouri anytime soon? I'm considering going back there for Christmas at Silver Dollar City because I have the season pass that I got earlier this summer. I'm just waiting to see just how the COVID numbers are trending. I feel perfectly safe at the park. Just the thing that's always made me leery is just sometimes air travel. But I do want to get back there if I can because it's probably a little too far for me to drive out there. Coaster Dash, 2 questions. Rank your top 5 favorite countries in no particular order, disregarding coasters. And okay, your other question's down there. Disregarding coasters. So Japan was an incredibly cool country to visit. I love that country. Also love Sweden. Really, I love a lot of the countries. And then I really like the UAE. Dubai was really cool, and Abu Dhabi felt very futuristic. Germany's cool because they're very traditional. And I know it's very similar to the US, but I also like Canada. Just the people over there are so friendly, and it feels very familiar over there, which is nice to have. But then you also have Montreal, which is one of the most beautiful cities out there and has some really cool cultural things. BLM supporter 5. Thoughts on Kumba, please. Very forceful looper. I much prefer Montu in the same parks. So for me, Kumba is almost a little redundant. I only usually ride Kumba maybe 2 or 3 times a visit and then marathon Montu just because I think Montu is a little smoother. I think Montu is similar forces, and I just prefer that ride overall. Coaster Dash, and what are a couple of countries you want to hit in the future that you haven't been to? Can be disregarding coasters 2, up to you. I want to get to Finland. That was another one I was going to get to this year until I had to cancel those plans. Norway's another one I want to get to because I love Sweden, so I'd love to see the rest of Scandinavia. Coaster Keychain, what's been the coolest ride to film? I can think of which ride's my least favorite to film. That would be anything at the Nickelodeon universe in New Jersey, just because if you take any picture there, the security guards will come over and ask you what you're doing. And they kept coming up to me when I was sitting on a bench asking why I was there alone. So that was a bit uncomfortable. But my favorite ride to film, Voyage was really cool on Hollywood Nights because there was the walk back tour and you get some angles you couldn't normally get. And that's a really impressive ride just with how dense the wooden structure is and how it holds its speed. Well, actually, how dense that steel structure is. And then it's just impressive seeing a wood coaster that big. Thunder Thrills, best Aero Mine Train. I really like Big Bad John at Magic Springs. The name Big Bad John's incredible. And that had a really strong pop of ejector airtime on that final drop I was not expecting. Coaster Keychain, how's Colorado Adventure at Phantasialand? So when I went to Phantasialand, it was pouring all day. And as a concession with Colorado Adventure, they could only load, I think it was the front 3 cars. And I've heard that ride's a lot better in the back. So I couldn't ride it back there that day. I was just thankful the park opened on a day, when it was pouring. And if you've been to Europe, those parks don't really close for bad weather. So that's encouraging. But, if I got to go to the park in a day when crowds weren't a big issue, and if the only compromise was not being able to ride the mine train in the back row, I thought it was worth it. Thunder Thrills, what gave you the idea to do this stream? I didn't want to do a stream for a while just to take anyone's questions that people had. And the fact that I saw I was about to hit 1,000 subscribers when I started it up, and I think I hit 1,000 subscribers right before this. I thought it'd be good just to take people's questions. Thunder Thrills, what's the most underrated Six Flags park you've been to? I touched on this earlier, but Fiesta, Texas. I know people love that park, but it's my favorite Six Flags park overall, and I don't think that's usually everyone's favorite Six Flags park. Max Hager, amazing first drop and boring layout, or good layout and okay drop? Good layout and okay drop. That sounds like Boulder Dash to me, except the layout on that ride's excellent. Coaster Keychain, what if Universal adds the world of Minecraft to Epic Universe in one of the expansion plots next to Nintendo? It sounds like Epic Universe might be delayed, which might cause Nintendo to go to Universal Studios Florida over where like the Woody Woodpecker ride is. I just really want to see Nintendo World because I love Nintendo, and that land looks really cool from what I've seen from Japan. Stanford Bridge, how would you rate Jorsen the Drac, and what do you think of Efteling? Jorsen the Drac surprised me. I was not expecting that to be the best GCI in Netherlands. I thought it was going to be Troy, but I love Joris. That's what I wish Lightning Racer was. Airtime on pretty much every hill, great racing. I loved that ride. Efteling overall is one of my favorite parks. I love parks that can combine thrills and theming, and Efteling did that. Great dark rides, solid coasters. I just wish that I had more time at the park because one day at that park was not enough time to do everything. Coaster Dash, any interest in going to China at some point? I'm really hoping to hear more coverage on it, both for the coasters and for the cultural aspect. It's a huge country. So I do want to go to China at some point because those rides do intrigue me. It just seems like a very hard country to travel to just because of how, I have a Google Pixel. I can't use that over there, and just a lot of the American apps aren't going to work. Would I consider going there at some point? Yeah, it's not in my immediate plans. Thunder Thrills, what's your opinion on River King Mine Train? It once dueled Big Bad John. River King Mine Train was closed when I was at Six Flags St. Louis earlier this year. I remember it being a decent mine train when I rode it in 2018, but I never rode it in the back. And I'm guessing the final drop would give similar airtime like Big Bad John. Max Hagen, Mystic Timbers or Diamondback? Mystic Timbers easily. That's my favorite GCI. Best night ride in that. Well, actually, I think I prefer Orion at night, but I prefer Mystic Timbers night rides over Beast night rides. I know it's not popular. Civilian Satellite, how do you typically get from park to park when traveling abroad? It depends entirely where I am. Like in Dubai, I used Uber because it was so cheap. And it allowed me to get to those parks that weren't on the metro lines. In Europe, I've driven before if I need to. Like, for example, to get to Nigloland, there was no way to get there at public transit. But other times, if public transit's available, like in Germany around Hansa and Heidi Park, I use that. Just depends where I am. I'm comfortable using either. Stanford Bridge, have you made it to Far Up Summerland? I have not. That's a park I want to get to at some point. I need to get to there in De Jures in Denmark. Thunder Thrills, what's your favorite video game? Right now, Planet Coaster, but I'm also a fan of Madden. Coaster Keychain, what's the best entrance to a park? I don't know if you're talking about the aesthetics or just the whole area. Like, I'm a sucker for Disneyland. You have Main Street, even though it's cramped, just very nostalgic to seeing the reveal when you go underneath the train station, just seeing Midway with the cast, just having Main Street with the castle at the end. Thunder Thrills, the drop in River King Mine Train gives a great ejector pop. Yeah, I figured as much. I wanted to ride that again, but it was closed when I was there this past visit. Stanford Bridge, I agree. George is better than Troy, and Efteling is one of my favorite parks in the world. And I was glad you had 2 days. Yeah, I was planning on going back and giving it a day and a half this past time and staying at the resort to get that extra hour in the morning. But hopefully that just goes next year. Like, I didn't get on I'm just going to call it the English name because I can't say it in Dutch. But I wasn't able to get on Flying Dutchman because that ride had so many technical issues when I was there. And that seemed like that would have been one of my favorite rides there. Orion or Diamondback by Max Hagenauer? Orion by far. Diamondback is a solid B&M Hyper, and the more I rode Orion, the more I love the ride. Coaster Dash, I'm going to sign off again. Yeah, thanks for joining. Coaster Keychain, have you been to Alton Towers? Yeah, I went there. I really love that park. It's another park that combined great theming, very weird theming, but great theming with some great coasters. Thunder Thrills, what's the worst park entrance you've seen? Probably some of those boardwalk parks that don't really have an entrance. Like the one that comes to mind that I recently went to is Keensburg Amusement Park in New Jersey. Like you just walk down this decrepit alleyway and then you're in the middle of the park, and the park was really run down. Oh, actually, I think I'm caught up in the chat, so that's actually nice now. Logan Benjamin, congrats on 1,000. What wooden coaster would you want to get the RMC treatment, and which one would you want to get the GCI steel track treatment? One RMC I'd love to see get it would be one of the ones at Canada's Wonderland, because Wild Beasts and Mighty Canadian Mindbuster, they're okay if you're up front, but they're bad anywhere else. And an RMC would be great at that line to give some ejector airtime to complement the floater airtime of the two B&Ms. In terms of the GCI steel reach rack, I maybe would say Wildcat Hershey Park, because I actually really like that ride's layout. It just really shakes itself up, and that used to be one of my favorite wooden coasters when it ran the PTCs. It just beat itself up. Stanford Bridge Flying Dutchman was truly phenomenal, albeit too short. Yeah, I figured I'd enjoy it. Thunder Thrills Weird River King Mine Train is never closed. Yeah, I think it was just having technical issues the day I was there. It wasn't closed due to the pandemic or anything. Nick the Pet Rock, how would you improve Patriots layout CGA? I think I touched on that, but I'd just rather invest in a new ride at that park. If they were to go back and add something, I don't think they would. I'd say a 0G roll, because I think every floorless should have one. The Quacken, would you want to see Boss at Six Flags St. Louis RMC or left alone? I want to get the treatment. It's not so rough. It's not enjoyable. I do enjoy Boss currently, but that ride would be such an amazing RMC. I'd love to see it happen. I just don't know if the park would put the money in the ride to convert the whole thing. It'd be a shame if they only convert part of it and just, and they cut the ride's length down. Marty Hatting, have you been to Australia and New Zealand? I have not been there. I really want to get there for DC Rivals, and Sydney looks like a cool city to visit as well. Max Hagar, Goliath at Six Flags Great America drop or Millennium Forces drop? Millennium Forces drop. Goliath at Six Flags Great America feels like your average RMC drop. That's not a bad thing by any means. The RMC drops give great ejector airtime. I love Goliath's drop, but Millennium Forces drop, just for how long it's sustained in that view off Lake Erie, is incredible. Stanford Bridge, have you been on Renegade? Do you prefer it over Mystic Timbers? I prefer Mystic Timbers. I've been on Renegade. Renegade is my second favorite GCI, so it's close, but I do prefer Mystic. Thunder Thrills, best indoor coaster you've ridden. I think it's Space Mountain at Magic Kingdom. I'm trying to think if there's another indoor coaster I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but I think that would be the one. BLM Support 5, what do you think of Gwazi pre-RMC? I never rode the original Gwazi. I would have been intrigued to ride. I'm guessing it probably would have ridden similar to Wildcat or Hershey Park, except a little slower maybe. Nathan Lamoureux, what's your career? I'm a mechanical engineer for a healthcare company. Bukum. Sorry, I butchered his name. It's Bukum Dukum. Have you played Frog Bog at Casino Pier? I was at Casino Pier this year. I didn't play any games. Coaster Keychain. What if Legend got the GCI Steel retrack? I thought Legend was running smoother than it has any time when I was there this past year. I don't think it needs to be retracked. What Holiday World's currently doing is working well. Azumarel 96. Are dive machines good? I enjoy dive machines. They're I know what to expect from them. You get great floater on the drop, and they're not super forceful, but they're always really smooth, and they're crowd pleasers. Coaster Keychain Raven. I'd rather see Holiday World just keep retracting sections of their wood coasters, because they do a great job maintaining those rides. I know Raven had a really rough patch entering that turnaround this year on the lake, but I want to see them put money into a family coaster, because they have a big gap between Howler and Raven. Thunder Thrills, how do you feel you hit 1,000 subscribers? I'm just glad people enjoy my content. Again, like I said, it gave me something to do during the pandemic, because I was sitting on a huge stockpile of photos, and slowly but surely just try to add some videos in the mix as well. Thunder Thrills, what's your opinion of Six Flags St. Louis? One of the more beautiful Six Flags parks with the tree canopy that covers most of the park. It's different how it has such a big wood coaster lineup. I'd love to see them get another great steel coaster to go with Batman and Mr. Freeze, but it's a fine park. It just doesn't have an elite coaster like some of the other Six Flags parks. Azumaro 96, are you interested in Super Nintendo World? Yeah, it looks really cool over in Japan. Just the whole how they set up that land with all the moving features from the videos I've seen. In terms of what they're gonna add next, like that Donkey Kong ride that's rumored sounds really cool because of how different it would be. I am intrigued to see how the Mario Kart ride's pulled off, considering you're riding with a bunch of other people in the vehicle. So it sounds like you probably won't control it. I just want to see how that ride turns out. Thunder Thrills St. Louis's wood lineup is underrated. Yeah, they do a great job maintaining those wood coasters. I have to give credit to their maintenance staff, especially because Boss is such a long ride, and I've never found that ride brutal. Allison McGovern, have you been to Michigan's Adventure? Yeah, I've been to Michigan's Adventure. I went once for a half day back in 2017. Shivering Timbers, loved that ride. Wolverine Wildcat was decent. Nothing else in the park really stood out to me, but I did like the beautiful lake in the middle. Coaster Keychain, I think you're 300 subscriber. Yeah, thanks again for subscribing so early. Yeah, I'm just glad people stuck around and like the content. Azumarel 96, I would like an F-Zero dueling coaster. F-Zero would be a cool franchise to see things based on. I just don't know how popular that is compared to some of the other Nintendo IPs. Thunder Thrills, I wish they had an RMC Woody, to be honest. Yeah, like I said, Boss as an RMC would be an amazing ride because of how long it is. I just hope if they ever RMC Boss, they go all in and replace the whole ride. It would be costly, but it would be an amazing ride. Max Hagar, Maverick or Millennium Force drop? Maverick has a really powerful drop, but I prefer Millenniums because of how much longer it lasts for. Thunder Thrills, I'm wishing for a Raptor at some point. I think that's a more likely RMC for Six Flags St. Louis, and it'll be a great addition for that park. Azumarel 96, which ride could top Steel Vengeance? I think Lightning Rod already tops it, just because one of the biggest things for me is that coaster setting. And Steel Vengeance, you have a great view of the of Lake Erie when you go up the lift in the park, but it doesn't really have a setting that matters during the ride. That's why I prefer Lightning Rod and Voyage over Steel Vengeance. Again, Steel Vengeance is an incredible ride, long, great airtime. It just doesn't have the setting that puts those really special coasters over the edge for me. Bukum Dukum, when Jersey Devil opens, do you think it'll be the best Raptor? And do you think that Toro will make one of the best 1-2 punches in the world? Jersey Devil looks like it'll be great. Assuming it has the same type of pacing as the other Raptors, the airtime in that ride will be incredible. And I think I'll much prefer it over El Toro. And the other thing I'm really looking forward to is that Jersey Devil should be open for holiday in the park because of where it is. I'm not saying it's going to open for holiday in the park this year. I mean in future years. Yeah, that would definitely be one of the best 1-2 punches. Some of the other ones that stand out to me are like Superman, Wicked Cyclone, Six Flags New England, Cedar Point, Steel Vengeance, and Millennium Force. Leesburg stands out with Balder and Helix. There are some great 1-2 punches out there. The Quack and Me, Boss could get RMC's Topper Track. I think that'd be interesting if they got Topper Track because the first half is pretty good, and the second half seems like it would be good if you weren't stopped on the mid-course. And if that ride ran through, I think that would be pretty good. Coaster Keychain, Kennywood should get a Raptor. Yeah, that would be a nice ad for that park, especially because they're cramped for space and Raptors can fit in a really small footprint. Max Hour, Lightning Run or Storm Chaser? Until this past year, I always said Storm Chaser, but Lightning Run was running incredible for me this past year, and I prefer that ride, especially for that aggressive finale. Storm Chaser is still great. They're really close in my rankings, but I do slightly prefer Lightning Run at this time. Which ride could Cedar Point add to stop Steel Vengeance? Oh, okay. If they got that 500-foot coaster that my heart wants, that might do it. I just don't know how likely that is. If Cedar Point got a 500-foot coaster, I feel like it would be like a polar coaster and that it has a hotel because that park loves their hotels and if they could mix a coaster with it, that would be perfect for Cedar Point. Boss Trimless is insane. Do they ever run that trimless? Like, do they open that in the colder weather and they have to run a trimless so it makes it back to the station? Because when I've been there, they usually have one train running and the other train will have sandbags in it. Max Hagen or Storm Chaser or Mystic Timbers. That's close. I'd probably go with Storm Chaser, but it's really close, especially because Mystic Timbers gives such a good night ride. Okay, so yeah, they do run trimless towards the end. Okay. Yeah, the days I've been to Six Flags St. Louis, Boss never really has a line, and I'm guessing they don't want to send out a relatively empty train with humans on it in case it valleys. Coaster Keychain, why have Cedar Point got an Ejanica clone? Yeah, that would be a really great ride for them. Very intense. And I'd love to see more 4D coasters out there. The Quack. And do you ever see Cedar Point on a B&M Flyer anytime soon? One that goes over the beach. So Cedar Fair has never had a flying coaster. The only ones they've had were inherited from Six Flags or Paramount. Cedar Fair loves capacity. I know Flyers aren't the best for capacity, so I feel like they may lean towards another B&M model over that one, but I would love to see it. Zoom around 96. I think an amazing Gerstlauer Infinity like Carnan with decent theming and more airtime could top Steel Vengeance. And it's possible it could. If it has great pacing. Like the best Gerstlauer been on is Schwartz's Carnan, and as great as that ride is, it just ends a little bit sooner than the Steel Vengeance, so I don't like it quite as much, but it is a great ride. Duke. I have a lot of Jersey questions because I live there, but it'd be cool if Maury's got a multi-million-dollar expansion that include the new GCI. Yeah, I wish they had that GCI that spanned multiple piers that was rumored a long time ago. I don't know where that currently stands, if it was canceled or it was just like postponed indefinitely like Ravine Flyer, but I'd love to see that happen. Max Hagar, I like boomerangs. Boomerangs, I don't despise them, but they're okay. I've just been on so many of them at this point that, it's not super unique. And I like the first drop. They're forceful. I just find going backwards through those inversions a little nauseating. I do like the giant invert boomerangs, though. Well, the ones at Silverwood and Park and War Madrid. The one at Six Flags New England is had an unfortunate modification. As a Maryland 96, congrats for your 1,000 subs. Bye. Yeah, thanks again for joining. Thunder Thrills, thanks for doing the stream. Yeah, I'm glad to have a chance to interact with people who enjoy my videos. Wanted to have a chance to thank everyone who subscribed. The Quack, and did you ever ride Son of Beast? I did not. I'm morbidly curious how it was, but on the other hand, my back probably thanks me for not riding it. Allison McGovern, what's your favorite Giga? Fury 325. Very rideable. Holds its speed incredibly well in the first half and great airtime in the return run. Jason Forbes, Fly. Great theming, no pretzel loop. Mistake. I've heard it's not as intense as Tehran, which I think was intentional by the park. It looks like just a very visual-based experience with how it flies over Rookberg, and it looks like a really cool ride, unlike anything else that's out there. Yes, it doesn't have the pretzel loop that makes it feel like you're getting a brain aneurysm, but it looks like a really neat ride. Then those you should stream more often. Yeah, I could do more streams if people enjoy it. I know this one was sort of last minute just because I wanted a way to thank everyone for 1,000 subscribers. Like I might try to do a Q&A. I need to figure out the best way to do that, how to get people's questions, but just make a video if people have things that I didn't get to in this stream. Bukum Dukum, if you had to pick 3 people in the coach community to go to a park, who would you pick and what park would it be? I've never had a bad experience with the coaster enthusiasts I've met. Really, as long as you're going to a park to have a fun time and you want to be positive, I'm happy to meet up with any, when there's not a pandemic. Like, I ran into, if he's still on the reverse boomerang at Silver Dollar City, he was wearing a mask correctly, so I was happy to meet up with him. And if anyone sees me in a park, definitely say hi. Just this year, just please make sure you're wearing a mask, just because, I want to keep my family safe. Thunderthrows Q&A. Yeah, I definitely do plan to do a Q&A at some point. Like I said, I just need to figure out the best way to ask questions. Do people typically make like a 1-minute video saying post questions in the comments, or do they use a community tab? How do you typically see people ask for Q&As? I'm trying to figure that out. Jason Forbes, yep, this is a great time. Stream is great. Yeah, like I said, I can definitely do more. Stanford Bridge Cup. Yeah, I think people stopped typing for a while, which made it good, so that way I can actually see responses instead of being lost. The Quack, and I'd love for you to come to Silver Dollar City. Yeah, I want to get there for Christmas. Silver Dollar City, if they have as many lights like Dollywood, that'll be great. Those coasters are incredible at night, and at least I know that RMC will be open. Jason Forbes, have you read Grizzly at California? Have you read Grizzly at California's Great Event, Great America, and did you think it was deserving of all the hate? So I don't think Grizzly, California's Great America, is the worst coaster like it won for all those years. It is a boring ride, but it's very smooth. It's a great family coaster. Would I mind if it was turning an RMC? No, but it's a good family coaster, albeit the capacity in the ride's terrible with how long dispatches take. Thunder Thrills, they usually make a video. Okay, so yeah, I can post a video basically saying I'll post your questions in the comments. Marty Hang, yeah, do your answering machine. Yeah, like I said, I wanted to just thank people for watching my videos and giving support. Bookum Dookum, have you ever watched a TV program or DVD about coasters? I used to watch those more back before the internet. Now I watch most of my coaster stuff on YouTube and read forums and Reddit. But I used to, look forward to those Discovery Channel shows because back before the internet, that was how you learned about other coasters. That or, my mom was great. She used to call the parks and request them to send brochures for me to look at. Like I have a huge collection of brochures off to the side from, way back in the 90s forward. Thunder Thrills, do you like B&M flying coasters? Yeah, I love B&M Flyers. Flying Dinosaur is easily my favorite one just because that ride has multiple intense elements. It has the fly to lie. It has the pretzel loop, and it just has some airtime in there too. That one's a great ride. Favorite underrated coaster YouTube channels. There are a lot of great coaster YouTube channels out there. It's hard for me to spotlight any one in particular. Because I don't want to short-sight someone by not saying them, but chances are if I'm watching videos and commenting on them, those are the channels I'm really invested in. Bernstein Bears, I want to eat you. You look yummy. Yeah, please don't. Thunder Thrills, yeah, that's my thought too. Connor Millstone, do you live in Salem? I do not. I live in Massachusetts, 20 minutes north of Boston. I guess that Salem, Massachusetts could be somewhat close to that, but no, I'm not in Salem. X Green 64, you look like that one robot guy from Survivor, David versus Goliath. I used to watch Survivor. I stopped watching when I was in college, so I haven't seen any of the newer seasons. Connor Millstone, how often do you go to Canobie? So my office is 5 minutes from Canobie, so I was planning on going, at least 1 or 2 times a week this year. And then the pandemic happened. And because Canobie has a rule where one of the health screening questions is, have you been on a plane in the past 2 weeks? And, I went on a few trips over the summer. And I found out from the park that even if you answer yes to that question and present a negative COVID test, you can't get in the park. So I wanted to respect their rules. So I wasn't able to go as many times as I wanted this summer. But I think I went 6 or 7 times, which, again, was way more than I had been in the past because this is the first time I had season passes. I don't think I'm going to Canobie again this year just because I think my next trip would probably be Six Flags Great Adventure, and then I have some family things coming up a few weekends. Ookum Dookum, what's your coaster count? 1,012. Thunder Thrills. Why? You're talking about Bernstein Bears. Thunder Thrills, how do you become an enthusiast? I don't remember a time when I wasn't an enthusiast. My parents took me to Santa's Village at Storyland when I was younger, and I loved it from day one and just wanted to keep going to more and more parks. I just couldn't wait until I hit the magical, 48-inch mark and could actually ride the adult rides. Jason Forbes, thoughts on the SS spinning coasters like Batman at Discovery Kingdom? I spent the entire ride pinned forward, but it was a righteous ride, all chance. I really like the SS free spins. When I go to Six Flags New England's Holiday in the Park, Joker's actually my favorite ride during the event, and I usually marathon it for that. I just love how different they are than the other coasters in the lineup. X Green 64, what's the one ride you're going to if you can only go on one? At Canobie. My favorite ride in that park is Yankee Cannonball, but that ride always seems to have a line unless you go on a day when it's rainy. My go-to ride at that park is the log flume just because it's usually a walk-on and it has the highest capacity in the park, so even if it has a line, the line moves quickly. The Quack, and do you like Beavis and Butthead? I have never seen Beavis and Butthead, actually. Connor Millstone, most underrated first drop. Number one's Yankee Cannonball. So my problem with the Yankee Cannonball is that retracking that they did a few years ago really neutered the ride. And the thing that shocks me at that first drop is it gives really good airtime in the back row. But even if you sit second to back, you get no airtime. And I can't think of any other coaster that the discrepancy between back and second to back is so severe for, one individual drop like that. The Bernstein Bears, do you eat wooden coasters? No, I do not. Thunder Thrills, if you could pick one coaster for the rest of your life, what would it be? So my favorite coaster is Lightning Rod, and I could ride that all day. But as we all know, that ride, that ride doesn't exactly run all the time. I'd probably go with Phoenix just because I always come off that ride laughing. The ride runs like a tank, and it's, glass smooth and just a lot of fun. Coaster Cloud, I started a test as the stream started and finished right now. Oh, I hope you did well in your test. Thunder Thrills, both second and back isn't nearly as good at the back. That doesn't shock me, but I'm guessing there isn't any one drop that has such a big discrepancy, just like Yankee Cannonball. The thing with Yankee Cannonball that bothers me is back row, great airtime on the first drop. Second and back, no airtime on the first drop. I'm guessing Raging Bull's more like back row gives excellent airtime and second and back gives, good airtime. Jason Forbes, have you ridden Minnie and Mickey's Runaway Railway? So I missed that ride by a month. I really want to get on it, and I've intentionally avoided watching POVs. I don't want to spoil it for myself, but Disney's been nailing all their recent dark rides. I really want to try that next time I get back down there. Stanford Bridge, have you nailed those two awesome credits at Edaville? I went to Edaville for the first time last year. I kept on saying that I was going to hold off visiting there until they opened Curse Splash, but I think I've realized that ride's probably never opening because it's been sitting in that field for 5 years and there's no path even heading over there. Edaville does great for their holiday event. It's just frustrating because you can see the projects they started but never finished. They have Curse Splash just sitting in an open field. They have a go-kart track that was paved over, but there's no go-karts or like tires along the go-kart track. And they supposedly started a dark ride that they never finished. So it's just, you just see the dark ride building jutting off another building that's just sitting there idle. X Green 64, city that really needs a park. I know they have some smaller boardwalk parks like an hour away, but Houston really deserves a bigger park for how big of a metropolitan area that is. Boogum Doogum, you're 10 years older than me. Weird statement, but there you go. Yeah, I'm 27. Thunder Thrills, when I rode second and back, I got nothing. Okay, I'm glad I waited for the very back then. The Quackmore, Curse Splash Evil ever open? It seems like it's been under construction forever. I am doubtful that ride will ever open because not only does the ride look like it's been abandoned, but the park doesn't even have a pathway leading over there. The park seems to attract young kids. And as much as I'd love to see that ride and they start expanding their offerings, they'd be smart to focus on, adding more kiddie rides because that's who visits that park. Jason Forbes, do you think B&M layouts are getting a little too repetitive? Intimate, much more creativity, a lot of variety. So I don't mind if rides are very similar in terms of layout as long as the layout's executed well. Like you can even say some of the RMCs are very similar in terms of the elements they have. But, every ride feels a little bit different, whether it be how the coaster is placed for a setting or just, not every vertical loop feels the same. Thunder Thrills, isn't Houston over Texas? I think Houston's like 4 hours away from San Antonio with Fiesta, Texas, and 4 hours away from Dallas with over Texas. Thunder Thrills, Raging Bull in the front is actually really fun. I rode up front and was really bored by it. And after that ride, I told myself I was not riding anywhere but the back. Marty Hatting, Raging Bull back row is awesome. Oh, I agree. Back row Raging Bull is great. Jason Forbes, do you collect nano coasters? Yes, I do. I have an Orion one. Have a Millennium Force one. And I have an El Toro one. But more importantly, I have this Slinky Dog Dash model I got from Disney. I mean, Slinky Dog is my favorite Toy Story character, and just the fact this thing shoots off is fantastic. Of those ones I assembled, probably Millennium Force is my favorite one, just because I actually used wire clippers for that one. And it was a lot faster. Before that, I'd been using nail clippers, and it took forever to build them. I want to get ones for like Six Flags New England, especially Superman, because I have a discount at that park, but haven't been able to go yet this year. And I'm hoping they're able to reopen. I think it's very doubtful, but the fact that they haven't called off their season yet, and there's a hearing with Massachusetts to try to reopen businesses next week, I'm thinking maybe they're hoping they can get the okay to reopen and try to restart the clock on people's memberships. Connor Millstone, most underrated and most overrated coasters. Again, I have a video on that. I can't think of my most overrated coaster off the top of my head. Most underrated, I jogged my memory during this, Osiris. Again, I went in expecting that to be one of the worst B&M inverts, considering it was one of the newer ones, but that ride has some great airtime moments in the back row, very forceful inversions and great theming. Most overrated, again, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I said El Toro earlier in the stream just because El Toro is a great ride. I just don't think it's the best wooden coaster in the world because it has some dead spots in that ride. Thunder Thrills, Houston used to have Astroworld. Yeah, I wish they still had Astroworld. It's a shame it closed. But, I wish I had made it there before they closed. But at that point, I wasn't doing too much traveling because, I was depending on my parents at that point. They did a great job helping me travel, but most of my travels have been since I graduated college and was able to travel on my own. The Quack and El Toro's double camelbacks is the best airtime moment of all time. Changed my mind. Yeah, that first drop in back-to-back camelbacks are arguably the best start of any coaster. I just don't like how the middle section really doesn't have too much airtime, and then the Twister finale it's decent. I just would have preferred a bunch of airtime hills back to the station. Stanford Bridge for me. Cornball Express was the same. Awesome in the back row. Only very good in the second to back row. Huge difference from just one row. Okay, yeah, I think I only rode that in the very back this past trip. But the biggest thing for me, Cornball Express wasn't running as fast this year as it was when I rode in 2017. Still a very good ride, just didn't blow me away like it did in 2017. X-Green, Quackin', Rolling Thunderhill. So the Rolling Thunderhill gets very forceful airtime. It's just not sustained as long as the camelbacks, which is why I prefer the camelbacks. Thunder Thrills. Do you not like Banshee? So I really like Banshee if I get a smooth train. Unfortunately, in 2 of my past 3 visits, I've gotten a train that was rattling to death. I really like how fast that ride feels. It's decently forceful. I like the first drop. It's just a shame that ride rattles so much. Jason Forrest, Righteous and the Nanos. Just finished Lightning Run, waiting for Iron Gwazi. Slinky Dog, I need it. Going to get it tonight. Yeah, I got that. One of the things that was pointed out to me about Toy Story Land at Disney's Hollywood Studios is that's the first land Disney ever built that didn't have a gift shop. Now they have a trolley selling gifts, but that surprised me that they didn't have a gift shop in that land, and it never dawned on me until someone pointed it out. X Green 64, favorite defunct coaster. Dueling Dragons, especially when they dueled. Very forceful inverts, and when they dueled, it was extremely unique. A close second would be Scandia Screamer, just because that ride gave some borderline violent airtime. And I mean, if anyone's been on a Myler kiddie coaster, those things are more aggressive than they should be. So imagine what happens when Myler builds a 95-foot tall coaster. Thunder Thrills, best drop in a hyper you've been on. Shambhala. The drop on Shambhala feels similar to one of the B&M Gigas. Thunder Thrills, Batman the Ride, Great America is a brutal rattle. It was running smooth when I rode in 2017, but that's a shame if that one's rattly too. Tim Hawley, have you been to Six Flags Great America? If so, what's your favorite coaster? I have not been since they opened Max Force, but when I was there in 2017, Goliath was my favorite. Short ride, but I liked the elements it had. X-Green 64, why is everyone talking about GA? I think you mean Great America or Great Adventure. I mean, Chicago and New York are 2 big metropolitan areas, 2 good Six Flags parks. I can see why people are asking about them. People have been asking a lot about Six Flags St. Louis too. Thunder Thrills, favorite Disney World park. Favorite Disney World park is easily Magic Kingdom. I'm a sucker for the castle parks. Favorite Disney parks overall. I love Disneyland and Tokyo Disneyland. I preferred Tokyo Disneyland until this past year when I realized I think I prefer Disneyland. Reason being, I like the fast pass system better at Disneyland because I can accrue more fast passes during the day, and Rise of the Resistance pushed them over the edge from an attraction standpoint. But both parks are incredible. Bookum Dookum, are Nano Coasters and Coaster Dynamics the same thing? I don't believe they are. I haven't gotten a Coaster Dynamics. I just have gotten Nano Coasters. Stamford Bridge, what's the strangest coaster you've ridden? Or at least the first one that comes to mind. Windjust is one that's weird just because I didn't know what type of elements that ride had until I rode it, and it had some bizarre things. I don't want to say what it has because I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't ridden it. But if you watch a POV, you can see how many bizarre things that ride has. Another one that comes to mind is Slope Shooter at Higashiyama Zoo. That ride looks like a soapbox derby racer going down a hairpin track. It's really bizarre. Quacking, you're going to head out. Thanks again for joining. Thunder Thrills, Disneyland Tokyo or Disneyland Paris? Tokyo by far. Paris is very beautiful aesthetically. It just doesn't have the ride lineup or customer service that Tokyo has. Thunder Thrills, I like Raging Bull more than Goliath personally. Goliath in the back was very good. I just preferred the overall intensity of Goliath over it. Stamford Bridge, was Disney Sea the best theme park you've been to? Either that or Warner Brothers World Abu Dhabi. I think one of the things that like going into Tokyo Disney Sea, I knew that park was going to be gorgeous, and it was. And that park spared no expense. What shocked me at Warner Brothers World Abu Dhabi is there had been no footage of that park before I got there. I had not seen a trip report of that park. I just knew that they had some dark rides and two coasters. I went in and I was blown away when I saw how beautiful that park's main entrance was, and each land was incredible. And most parks, they're kind of handicapped by the fact that they're indoors, that they feel like a warehouse oftentimes. But Warner Brothers World Abu Dhabi used the indoor setting to the advantage by controlling the lighting in each area. It was incredible how isolated each area felt from the other areas. I loved that park. One of the best parks in the world. And all those dark rides were Disney and Universal quality. And that's probably the park I came away most shocked from because no one had said anything about that park. And then I went there, and it was my favorite park in Dubai. Like, I expected to only spend a half day there and a day and a half at Ferrari World. I spent more time at Warner Brothers World because of how great that park was. Mari Hang, I find Goliath very underrated. Did it 14 times over 2 days. So when I went on Memorial Day back in 2017. So the park was slammed, and I had to get Flash Pass. And that was when they when they were limiting you to 2 rides in Goliath. So I only rode it once in the back, once in the front. The single rider line they had was even backed up, so I only got on it twice. Jason Forbes, I found Slinky Dog Dash playset. Soon it'll be mine. Thanks for showing it to me. Yeah, it's a beautiful playset, and that's a really nice family ride. Bookum Dookum, have you ever met another YouTuber at the park? I mentioned I met Reverse Boomerang at Silver Dollar City. He recognized me when we were in line for Time Traveler. I met El Toro Ryan at Dollywood last year for Thrills in the Hills. I've definitely met a few other coaster YouTubers. Those are two of the ones that come to mind and off the top of my head. I probably met other coaster YouTubers without realizing they were coaster YouTubers, to be honest. Thunder Thrills, what's the first coaster you can think of? I guess Orion, because it's sitting off on my right with the Nano Coaster. Stamford Bridge, I really enjoyed Windjust. Slope Shooter, definitely on my bucket list. Yeah, Slope Shooter is such a weird ride. I don't think there's anything else quite like it out there. And I know it's debatable as even a coaster, but it's a lot of fun. Alex exists. I haven't been on Max Force yet, and Six Flags Great America is my home park, still 3 hours away. Yeah, that's a park that I want to get back to this year, but I had to postpone those plans like a few other plans. Thunder Thrills, what's the most underrated hyper you've been on? Probably Phantom's Revenge. I always came away liking that ride, but I only would get 2 or 3 rides each visit just because usually I'd only have like a half day at Kennywood, but this time I gave myself 2.5 days at the park. Might have been overkill, but I really like Kennywood, and I was able to get plenty of rides at Phantom, and I forgot how good that ride was. Love how minimalistic the restraints are and how strong the airtime is. X Green 64 rank Goliath 1 through 7. Off the top of my head, I'm probably gonna miss some of the Goliaths, but I like the ones at over Georgia and LaRonde. They're a close 1 to 2. Both are great. Both are floater airtime machines. Probably the one at Six Flags Great America next, just because it's an RMC, very aggressive. It's just a short ride. Last place is definitely the one at Six Flags New England. Then at 4 I would probably put. I'm probably gonna forget a Goliath because there's so many of those coasters. The one at Wallaby. I think the Wallaby one would be. I think I'd put that one 4th, maybe. I think Goliath at Great America is better for each element it has, but Goliath at Wallaby has more length. 5, I would put the Batman the Ride clone at Fiesta Texas, and 6, I'd put the Hyper Coaster at Magic Mountain. Goliath, I do enjoy. It's just not what I want a Hyper Coaster to do. Connor Millstone, worst steel coaster. Probably the worst SLC I've been on, which would be Blue Tornado at Gardaland. You know, most of those SLCs have like the padding around your ears. Yeah, the one at Gardaland didn't have the padding, so you were hitting your head against a hard restraint, and that was miserable. Stanford Bridge, some indoor parks feel like malls to me, but Moscow's Dream Island literally looks like a mall. I haven't seen too much footage of that park. I really need to take a look at it. I want to see how the Intamin coaster looked if there was a POV that exists. X Green 64. I went to Six Flags America on National Coaster Day at the same day as Airtime Mike filmed a video and posted on El Toro Ryan, but I hadn't heard of him back then. Is that the Firebird video where he's talking about how smooth the ride is and his head's hitting the restraint? I do need to go back to try Firebird. I have a bad feeling I'm not going to like it too much, but I think it would be an improvement over Apocalypse, even if it's a slight improvement. Thunder Thrills, what's the most overrated hyper you've been on? I'm really bad at naming the overrated coasters off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of one that let me down a little bit. Like Wild Thing at Valley Fair let me down, but I don't think anyone raves about that ride, so I don't know if that one's fair to call overrated. Yeah, sorry, I'm really bad at thinking like which rides are overrated off the top of my head. Thunder Thrills, wooden or steel coasters. I'm going to cheat there and say airtime focused layouts. It just so happens wood coasters tend to have airtime focused layouts more often. But wood steel, it doesn't matter to me as long as the ride has airtime, great pacing, and an extra setting, a great setting puts them over the edge. Thunder Thrills, most underrated RMC. I'd go with Outlaw Run. Amazing setting, legendary night rides, and yes, it's on the shorter side, one of their older ones, but the pacing's impeccable start to finish, and the airtime moments of that ride are great. There's no dead spots in that ride. X Green 64, worst park for a home park. One of the parks that said was one of the bad home parks for a while would be Canobie Lake Park. I love that park, but they never had season passes until this year. So I'd say any park that doesn't have a season pass is sort of a tease because you have to keep paying the gate price every time you go there. But I'd say what would make a bad home park is if you have a park that just has bad operations, and you can't, like, for me, a home park, you should be able to go in, ride some stuff quickly, and they have to have a diverse enough lineup that you don't get bored going there. Like, one of the things that I do at Canobie is, I obviously try to ride Yankee Cannonball every visit, but Canobie is such a strong flat ride lineup. It's the reason I don't ride flats at a lot of other parks. I'll ride the special flats at other places, but Canobie has, a really intense rotor, some great spinning rides, and it's nice to have the nice mix of attractions when I go there. Tim Hawley, which is better, Voyage or Lightning Rod? Very close, but I prefer Lightning Rod. Both have incredible pacing, but I think each moment on Lightning Rod is better than the moments on Voyage, even though Voyage is the length. Yeah, so Thunder Thrills and Allen Trotter, like, I know people love Outlaw Run, but I've heard some people saying lately the ride's getting rough. I don't think the ride's rough. It's very rideable. I rode it, I think it was 45 times in the span of 2 days. I just kept marathoning that ride. Stamford Bridge, padding on SLCs makes all the difference. Condor and Limit were the shakiest I've been on, but padded. So Darien Lake's Mind Racer is by far the most painful. I've only ridden Darien Lake's Mind Racer once, and it was a decade ago. I don't remember liking the ride, and I have not ridden it since, nor do I plan to. Thunder Thrills, have you? Oh, Tim Hawley, Extreme 64, Michigan's Adventure for a bad home park. At least Shivering Timbers is a great ride, but it sort of does stink. That park hasn't added much over the years. Thunder Thrills, have you been on Excalibur at Six Flags St. Louis? Yeah, I actually rode that this past summer, and it was cool to get on that ride because I had seen it in pieces in my first visit. Though I had actually ridden another Evolution when I was in California for an internship. Butler Amusements has a traveling one, and it gave a longer cycle than Excalibur at St. Louis. Thunder Thrills, Riddler's Revenge at New England looks really fun. I was impressed when they put the new trains in that ride a few years ago. They didn't really market that edition when they put it on Mind Eraser in its last season, and it went from a ride that I avoided for a decade to something I try to ride every visit. And that ride runs like a tank. There was the first year Six Flags New England did Holiday in the Park. The park ended up closing because I think it was a pipe froze, and every single ride in the park was pretty much broken down except Mind Eraser. That SLC ran like a tank and did not shut down. That ride never goes down. Thunder Thrills, Great Nor'easter looks great too. Yeah, any of the Vekoma SLCs with the Vekoma trains and the Vekoma harnesses are really good rides. I like the layout. I just want to be able to enjoy it without smacking my head. T3, I know that one has non-Vekoma trains with like the vests, but that ride just tracks so poorly. Joy, hey, Canobie Coaster, I found your channel a couple months ago and have really been enjoying your content ever since. Oh, thank you. Thunder Thrills, why don't all SLCs do it? I think it just comes down to if the parks want to invest in the new trains or not. Maury's is a park that was landlocked, so it made sense for them to retract the ride, put the new trains on, and try and market it that way. Six Flags New England, as we've seen before, they like to put new trains in their inverts. I'm just glad it turned out better for Mind Racer / Riddler Revenge. Thunder Thrills, what's your opinion on Mindbender being rethemed to Riddler? I don't think the ride experience is really going to change. I just am going to miss that old classic sign. Thunder Thrills, what about T3? Yeah, that ride's so shaky, it's sort of funny. X64, Gilroy Gardens is a bad home park. I've never been to Gilroy Gardens. It's a park that I want to get to at some point. Just whenever I go out to California, when I was there for the internship, I didn't have a car, so it depended on public transit. I couldn't get to that park with public transit. And just for reference, I took like 4 hours of subways and buses and walking to get to Six Flags Discovery Kingdom and was willing to do that. But there was physically no way to get to Gilroy Gardens. Stamford Bridge, Six Flags New England, Michigan's Adventure, and Maury's were the best SLCs I've been on. I wasn't as big a fan of Michigan's Adventures SLC as others. Yes, it was smoother than others, but I still didn't like it because those restraints are just so bulky. But I agree it tracks better than the other ones. Thunder Thrills, what's your opinion on Elitch Gardens? So I was supposed to go to a wedding in Denver this past summer, and I was finally going to go to Elitch Gardens and Lakeside and Glenwood Caverns, but the wedding went virtual online, so I had to postpone those plans. I'm hoping I get there before they close, but we'll see what happens. Bookum Dookum, had you been to Keys of the Kingdom this year? Yes and no. I was at Kentucky Kingdom that day, but I did not do Keys of the Kingdom because I had to leave early to drop my friend off at the airport. And then afterwards, I had to go to Pittsburgh for my flight the next morning. So I left early, stopped at Kings Island on the way, got another ride in Orion, and kept going to break up the drive. X Green 64, new for 2021, Holiday World putting PTC trains on Thunderbird. So one thing that surprised me, I saw on Reddit the other day, someone said Thunderbird was running like 5 seconds faster. The video I saw that thing running was hauling through the course. Alan Trotter, Gilroy Gardens is a nice park, but not a coaster park. Yeah, that's my interpretation of the park. The park looks beautiful. Tim Hawley, best SLC. The one at Maury's Piers, Great Nor'easter. Lots of near misses with like the water slides and Flume nearby. They retract the whole thing a few years ago, so it's the smoothest SLC, and it has the new Vekoma train, so it's smooth. That ride's really good now. Thunder Throws look like being Thunderbird was hauling. Best CCI ever in easily Boulder Dash at Lake Compounds. That ride's, I know people like to call it Ravine Flyer Mini Voyage. Boulder Dash is really Mini Voyage because it's a terrain-based woody, hauls through the layout, lots of great airtime hills. And really, it's with Boulder Dash, not one moment stands out. It's just the aggregate of the ride. It's just one airtime hill after another with some laterals mixed in as you are dodging trees and rocks on the hill. Thunder Thrill's worst CCI. Probably one of the junior ones like Zach Sumer or Tomahawk, and those are fine rides. I'm trying to think if there's a CCI I actively hate. I can't think of any CCIs I really dislike. Like one of the worst ones is probably like Hoosier Hurricane, just because it doesn't do anything with all that speed and airtime hills. Joy, what are your thoughts on Legend? Great laterals. I love the setting through the woods. Amazing night rides. And it has some decent airtime on like the, I think it's the 4th and 5th hills and the return run. Tim Holly, how's life been treating you? I've been working from home for the most part. I've been staying safe, wearing masks when I go out. Massachusetts as a whole has been doing good with the pandemic ever since we knew what was going on. We were hit hard by that Biogen conference at the beginning. And, because we saw how bad it could get, we've been, distancing, wearing masks. And thankfully it hasn't really gotten out of control here ever since then. Thunder Throws, I've been on the stream when I was going to write a script. Oh, yeah. Sorry if it's delayed anything you're trying to work on. X Green 64. Wow. Where haven't you been to? I haven't been to some countries in Europe. Like I haven't been to Poland, haven't been to Finland, haven't been to Norway. Those were places I was planning to go to this year, but had to postpone those plans. I also haven't been to Mexico. I haven't been to China. I have been to Mexico City though. Though, yeah, as you mentioned, the stream's been going on for 2 hours, so I probably want to log off soon and try to get ready for bed. Are there any last questions that people want to ask? Like, just real quick, I can. But like I said, I'm going to do a Q&A soon. So if there's any questions I don't get to, you can post it there. Stanford Bridge, if you think Boulder Dash is Mini Voyage, have you been on the Mini Boulder Dash roller coaster at Idlewild? So the one time I went to Idlewild was the year they were putting those hideous-looking new PTC abominations on the ride, and it was closed because it was the year after that accident had happened. So I have not been on roller coaster. It looks cool how it uses the terrain. I just know it's not a super intense ride. Joy, what's the best crate you missed? The one that I'm kicking myself the most for is Hypersonic XLC. When I went to King's Dominion in 2006, we had 1.5 days there. And the first day, my goal was getting Volcano because that had been the ride seen for years. It was a bucket list ride. And I waited about 2.5 hours to get on. I think it was 2.5 hours to get on that ride. And then when I got over to Hypersonic, I saw that ride had an obnoxious queue line as well. So I was like, I'll just ride tomorrow. Well, Hypersonic never opened the second day. And by the time I got back to the park, it was removed. So I'm kicking myself for that one. But, any ride could have gone down. It's just unfortunate that one went down. Ellen Trotter, biggest bucket list coasters. Probably the RMCs I haven't been on, like Iron Gwazi looks amazing. Zadra looks amazing. Hakugai looks amazing. And then my number one is that I haven't been on is T-Express because it has the epic first half of El Toro with the endless bunny hills of Balder. And my issue with Balder is that it doesn't have a great first drop, and T-Express fixes that. Thunder Thrills, what's your favorite video you've done? I like a lot of the reviews I've done just because I really like talking about the coasters I love a lot. It's hard for me to say if there's any one review I like more than the others, but those are the types of videos I like doing. Xscreen64, playing online games. I don't really play online games in the traditional sense. Like I'll play like a 2-person franchise with one of my friends on Madden, considering we've been playing remotely over the past few months. I'll play Catan online with my friends, but I don't really play where are the games people play online, like Fortnite or whatnot. Thunder Thrills, this coaster at Playland is insane as people say. Yes, it's like Phoenix on steroids. You have a minimalistic restraint, but except you have really strong ejector airtime. Like, I wouldn't put my hands up on that ride. I was so terrified. The ride's insane. Tim Ollie, what was a question that you wish was asked during the stream or that you wish you were asked more often? I'm just happy to talk about coasters. It's hard for me to say if there's any one question that people want answered. I mean, I'm happy to talk about any coasters, really. Kings of Maine should get a launch access to replace all again. Yeah, I'd love for him to get a replacement for Volcano. I'd love for it to be a nice big signature ride, especially because Busch Gardens Williamsburg seems like they're adding one big coaster after another if that Giga Shuttle happens after Pantheon. Yeah, I'm just going to take these last two questions and I'm going to log off. Like I said, if there's a question you want to ask that I didn't get to, I'm going to do a Q&A video in the comments. So you can add those questions there. Like I said, I'm just going to take the last two questions I had seen and then stop the live stream because it's getting late over here. Thunder Thrills, Phoenix or Coaster? Very close, but Coaster. Coaster's airtime's a lot more aggressive, and it's just a wilder ride overall, and it has the similar restraints to Phoenix. And then the last question I'll take is Thunder Thrills. What's a coaster a lot of people hate that you liked? The ones I'm thinking of aren't ones that necessarily people that I liked as much as I didn't hate. Like Bandit at Movie Park Germany, I heard that ride was terrible, and it was, it was fine. It was my biggest problem with the ride wasn't rough; it was more slow. Like I also don't have a problem with a lot of like the other one I can think of is Zeus at Mount Olympus, just because a lot of people before I got to Mount Olympus in I think it was I at Mount Olympus last year or 2 years ago? I think I was at Mount Olympus 2 years ago, and a lot of people had told me that Zeus was brutally rough. I wasn't expecting to get beaten to death, and I thought it was running pretty smooth, and I loved that ride. Though I think most people that have ridden it lately have said it's good, so I think they must have done some retracting before I rode it. So yeah, like I said, those are the last questions I'm going to take. If there are any questions you guys want answered, I'm going to just post a Q&A video where you can post the questions there. And thanks again, everyone, for subscribing and joining me in the live stream. I'll definitely do some more in the future. Like I said, I just want to do a quick video. Well, this wasn't a quick video, but a video short notice just to celebrate getting up to 1,000 subscribers and thank anyone who's here for liking my videos and support and watching them. And, it's great to interact with everyone. And I guess have a good night.